Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Saints Row, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm coming to you right now as a failure. I was not able to complete the new Saints Row game. It's like the one chip challenge, but instead of spice, it's just dog shit game that just makes people tap out from pain. It's so bad. It's very rare that a game is so unbelievably bland, boring, and awful that I don't finish it. Usually I can push through it, and I usually really enjoy bad games because they can be laughably bad. And make no mistake, Saints Row starts out laughably bad, but by hour 4, where it's the same missions every single time with no changes except the location, it just becomes so mind-numbing and miserable. Every single mission in this game plays out exactly the same. You're either going to be on a turret, just shooting waves of enemies on a turret, in a car, shooting waves of cars that chase you, riding on top of a car, shooting waves of cars that chase you, just all these static on-rail sections, or you're going to be standing in a location defending someone as waves of enemies come at you, or occasionally you'll storm a location, you'll shoot through like 2 waves of enemies, and then you go into a turret section or a chase section where you're just shooting cars. It's so miserable. 10 hours of non-stop unfun anguish. And to be honest, it'd be fine and excusable if the gameplay was good, but it is not. And I don't know what the other reviewers are seeing in the gameplay that's giving them high scores. I don't know what's happening, if they've even played the game or if they played it with their eyes closed. I don't get it. The gameplay is objectively dated. It is not good. It is bland gameplay, and I felt like I was playing a 2006 title. If this game came out over a decade ago, it'd be totally passable. But it didn't. It came out in 2022, and it is a massive step down from even Saints Row 3. The gameplay is trash. It is the most uninspired, unfun, cookie-cutter snooze fest. Every fight plays out the same way. You don't have like powers or anything anymore. You have abilities that you use, but the abilities are super boring. You're basically just a guy with all the powers of a teenage boy. You can throw a grenade, you can throw a smoke bomb down, you can throw a landmine, and a couple of the abilities are kind of fun, like you can put a grenade on someone's belt and throw them and they explode. That's the only enjoyable one. The fire punch, which I thought would be cool, was super lame and underwhelming. Just overall, the gameplay is super stinky, inexcusably so. It is objectively, this isn't like an opinion, it is dated. It doesn't do anything that you would expect from a modern AAA title. It goes backwards. It is a giant step back from Saints Row like 8 years ago. Like it blows my mind that anyone's giving it a pass. I understand liking other aspects of the game, which I'll get into in a minute, but the gameplay itself is something that can't just be overlooked. It is just not good. The driving is terrible, as you'd expect. Saints Row's always had bad driving. I'll just say it like it is. I'll hit you with the cold water. The driving in Saints Row's never been great, and it's just as bad here, so don't expect any improvements on that front. But again, the main blemish is just how bad the gunplay is, and don't even bother trying melee because you're just going to want to throw yourself down the stairs in boredom. The melee, my god, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know why they bothered to put it in here when you only have 2 moves for everything. But regardless, the gameplay is just not fun. And the missions being so formulaic where you know what's going to happen every single mission is also not helping. So now moving on from the gameplay, let's talk about what I'm sure all of you are hearing, which is the writing. Yes, the writing is as bad as you've seen in the Twitter clips or have read about from other reviewers. The writing is so fucking trash, but it's almost so shitty that it's good. It's almost to the room level of how awful the dialogue is. Like, I'm sure you've seen in the intro cutscene, the main character has like a bit of a hissy fit in the car, and depending on what voice you pick, they'll say some stupid shit such as crap, crappin' crappin' motherfuck crappin' fuck motherfucking crap. And that dialogue is for every character ever. Every character is exactly the same. They all speak like an angsty child going through a phase. It's like this script was written by an AI that was forced to only study Twitter. It is awful. It is abominable. It should be downright criminal how bad the writing is often in this game. It doesn't stop. It is unrelenting cringe. And like I said, I love bad games. I always do find enjoyment in bad games, and I did find that here in the beginning with Saints Row, but it just becomes too much, right? It never stops being embarrassing, and at a certain point, you can't help but hate it. And my heart breaks for the voice actors because they had to read this script and do their best to try and save it with their performance. And I don't think the voice acting's bad. I don't think anyone did like a terrible job with their characters. I really think it is all just the direction and the writing, like the actual script here and how they were instructed to deliver the lines. It's so bad. And the story is of course bad by extension. You're gonna hate every character unless you're just laughing at them, and the story isn't good either. Oh my lord, it's a complete fucking disaster from a narrative and character perspective. It also doesn't help that the open world in Saints Row is the emptiest in all of AAA gaming. I can't think of a more dead open world than this game. It makes Ubisoft's open worlds look alive. Like Watch Dogs Legions somehow felt more alive than this fucking game. You'll drive around from point A to point B and see nothing. You'll see a couple other cars on the road, but the AI is always malfunctioning, so sometimes they might be driving up a mountain for no reason or hitting each other or killing themselves, like driving into rivers and shit. But aside from like the goofy spectacle of bad AI, there's nothing in the world. I don't even know why they bothered to make it open world in this case. They could have just done a linear Saints Row and it would have at least been better because it would have saved time driving from point A to point B that'll take like 10 real world minutes sometimes. So there's a lot I don't like about the game, so you're probably wondering, is there anything I do like? And the answer is no. There's really almost nothing in this game that I had fun with, other than the wingsuit and a couple of silly missions. I always appreciate the silliness of games and a game that can embrace it, and Saints Row obviously tries. But because the game plays so bad and every mission plays out exactly the same, it's hard to enjoy the silliness because it's immediately bogged down by waves of enemies that become a chore to just chop through. Some of them are just bullet sponges, some of them die in one hit, but either way there's always hordes and hordes of enemies and it's not fun to fight them. But in the few minutes of fun before the enemies show up, where the characters are doing something like going to get a special toy from a burger place or roleplay or LARPing around the area talking about like the house of tapeworms and shit, like I appreciate the charm there. And there are very clear moments that are like a direct homage or paying tribute to other properties, which I of course appreciate. But again, then the enemies show up as they always do with just waves of like static turret shooting, and it sucks. And you're immediately taken out and you go back to just being miserable. But I do like the wingsuit. I did like some of like the actual mission ideas, like LARPing for example, but aside from that, I really do struggle to find things I like, except for cutscenes. I think when they're doing main mission cutscenes, those work pretty well. Visually, the game's not great. I mean, you can look at this game and immediately see that it's not the most impressive. It does look like it belongs on the Xbox 360, but I'm not like a big graphics stickler. I think direction trumps trumps graphical fidelity 100% of the time. And there are a few missions where I appreciated where they were going with the direction, doing crazy shit like, you know, ramping a car off of a rock, landing on a sign, and using that sign to, you know, crush cop cars. You know, that's cool. Those cutscenes are cool. But then again, you get back to the mission, and it's a buggy mess of gameplay. That's something I haven't even mentioned yet. The bugs. This game is full of glitches, so much so that it makes Cyberpunk look like it was polished on release. There are so many fucking bugs in this game, it is wild. It is head-spinning. But, you know, that's not even the biggest issue I have with it. It's, again, just how boring the fucking gameplay is. Anyway, plugging Saints Row into the moist meter, I'm going to have to give this like a 25%. It's rough. It's so rough. I don't see why anyone would choose to play it past 2 hours, you know, while you can still get a refund. It doesn't change. Within that 2 hours, you can pretty much experience everything the game has to offer. You encounter every faction, which they're all pretty much the same. They don't do anything special. You've encountered the only main ability that you'll have fun with, which is the grenade and belt and throwing them. And the gunplay never evolves, nothing changes, and every mission has the same objectives throughout the entire game. So I think within 2 hours, you know exactly how the rest of the game is going to go from a gameplay perspective. It's just going to be a matter of, do you like the writing? Is this your taste? And I think for the majority of people, it's going to be a resounding no there. Even people that'll like it in the beginning, it just becomes too much because they never let off the gas. The writing is just so aggressively bad that I think even if you enjoy it in the beginning, you'll be turned off by the end. Anyway, that's about it. So yep. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Watch Dogs game, Watch Dogs Legion. I'm just gonna come out right now and say it. This is probably the most boring game I've played this year. This is 2020's Death Stranding. It is so unbelievably boring to play. There's nothing fundamentally wrong with the game. I want to get that clear right now. It's not just full of bugs. It's not like a Bethesda cum dumpster or anything. It functions how you would expect a modern game to function, but it is just so repetitious and uninteresting, from its story to its characters to its absolutely tiresome gameplay. It's just, there's no fun to be had here. This is the most Ubisoft game yet, and what do I mean by that? I mean, like, every single fucking Ubisoft game is the exact same gameplay elements, and just about everything the same, just with a different skin. At least that's the way it's felt in recent times, except for a few fringe cases like Rainbow Six Siege, which is great. But overall, it just feels like Ubisoft only has one kind of game. They're like the Derek Zoolander of game companies. They only have one look, and it is this goddamn look. It's the same formula every time. Open world, explore, minimal stuff to really explore, but you can walk around and then you do the same types of missions in every single game with a few different gimmick changes. In Watch Dogs, it's hacking, and the hacking is not fun. There's nothing very enjoyable about the hacking. It's all just, here, download this data while you stand still, and it just goes from 1 to 100%, or here, throw this spider bot, and then you just walk it and press Y. There's not a whole lot of cool shit with this gimmick here. The only interesting thing you can do with the hacking is control other people's cars and shit, and then like get data on other people, which is kind of cute, but it's not that fun, especially not after the millionth time you've played with that. It's just so tedious. It just feels like Ubisoft decided to parody themselves with this game. It's just so basic and generic and boring. The only other interesting mechanic that I can even point out is the ability to recruit anyone in the world to your team, which can lead to some goofy shit, like I recruited an entire team of people who looked like pedophiles. But when you recruit these people, the things you have to do are still just the same shit over and over and over again. It's so boring. And the voice acting in this game is insulting. It's probably the worst voice acting in a AAA game I've heard in a long time. And Jackson told me that going in, but this is worse than I expected. It is terrible. It's hard to care about the story when even the voice actors don't seem to care about the story. It's terrible. It's really bad. The story's not interesting. Everything's so bland. The world is uninteresting. Everything in the world is uninteresting. It is just not fun. And I compared it to Death Stranding earlier, and I just feel like that's a bit of a disservice, because I did enjoy certain things about Death Stranding. Like, I loved the universe, I loved the world, I loved the narrative, I loved a lot of things about Death Stranding, but there is literally nothing in Watch Dogs Legion that I loved. The only good thing I can say about this game is I feel like players will appreciate it as like a sleeping aid. Like, if you struggle with insomnia, you could probably pop on to Watch Dogs Legions for like 30 minutes and it'll have you out like a light. This game is going to put most people to sleep, I imagine. I can't really see anyone who in this day and age would play this game and just be blown away by anything in it. Everything here is so bare bones. A lot of it just feels like asset flips sometimes. It's just not good. You can tell there's no passion in the game. There's really nothing creative about it. Not that everything needs to be like innovative and a pioneer in its field, but this is the safest, most generic game I think I've ever played, actually. It is just this. It's like they took the Ubisoft template and just copy and pasted it and changed a few things in the matter of like 2 months. It is so fucking boring. Like, I can't stress that enough. Even thinking about it, I'm getting tired. So just plugging Watch Dogs Legion into the Moist Meter, I'm giving it a 40%. And, you know, I know that sounds high with everything I've said, but like I mentioned, everything mechanically works. Like, the game isn't broken, it's not unplayable, it's just boring. It's just really fucking boring. So yeah, that's about it. I don't think this game is going to scratch that open world itch that people get or anything like that. It's no GTA replacement to anyone that was expecting that kind of high caliber experience here. I just don't see what this game offers to anyone that they'll appreciate. It's a very forgettable, well, forgettable being the wrong word. You'll fall asleep while playing it. It's just an actual chore to play. It's just, yeah, I didn't enjoy my time with the game. I usually stream pretty much every new game start to finish on my Twitch, but this game, it was putting the chat to sleep as well as me, so I only played it for like 3 hours on stream and then did the other fucking however many hours I put into this game off stream. It was absolutely miserable, just not very fun. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at The Last of Us 2. The first Last of Us is one of my favorite stories in all of gaming, and I did not want to see a sequel. The first game wrapped itself up absolutely beautifully with an extremely powerful narrative, and I did not think Naughty Dog could do anything even close to that level again in the same universe. And they didn't, and somehow this was even more disappointing than I was expecting. And let me just say right now, my disappointment with this game doesn't come from the fact that Joel's not the lead. I have no problem with Ellie being the lead. I have no problem with Ellie being in love with another girl in the game. I need to say that because the internet has already come to this conclusion where if you don't like The Last of Us 2, it's only because you hate women, or you're a homophobe, or you can't stand the fact that men aren't the leads in the game. None of that has anything to do with my disappointment of this game. I wouldn't give a shit if every single character in this game was a woman and you don't even see a man. I wouldn't give a fuck if every single character in this game was an anthropomorphic furry smurf. As long as it told an incredible narrative up to the same level of quality you would expect from the Last of Us universe, to the same level The Last of Us was able to deliver, at least something on par with that. That's not the case here. The storytelling and narrative in this game is absolute dog shit. It is. I'm sorry to say that. It fucking hurts me to say that because of how much I loved the first Last of Us, but this is a very big decline. In a nutshell, the entire story is revenge is bad. And they just keep hammering that theme home for the entire 25 hours. Revenge is bad. Revenge fucking sucks. Revenge has all of these far-reaching consequences. Everyone's getting hurt around you because of revenge. Don't fight fire with fire. Revenge with revenge. It's terrible. You know, you better close your windows at night because you're letting the revenge in. Hey, honey, I'm making dinner. Do you want a nice plate of revenge? Oh, shit, we're gonna need 2 body bags here. It looks like these 2 people got revenged. It's just the same fucking thing beaten to death. Revenge is bad. It's a generic idea, a fucking story you've seen a million times. And if this game was not called The Last of Us 2, if this was a standalone IP, I don't think it would be nearly as bad. You know, it'd be much more forgivable. But the fact that it's following up something as unique and beautiful as Last of Us narrative with a generic revenge plot, it's laughable and lazy. It seems like a soulless cash grab off the goodwill of The Last of Us. It feels like something they came up with at last minute, not something they had planned from the start or even thought about deeply. And when you compare this game to the first one, which I don't typically like to do, but it's hard not to since this is supposed to be the sequel to a beloved narrative, the first game, it has so much emotion in it that Last of Us 2 doesn't even bother to try and capture. From the very get-go of Last of Us, it punches you right in your fucking nutsack. You have this man who just loses his daughter in a horrific way. The light of his life is taken away from him. He becomes jaded. He's barely even a fucking human being anymore. He's not even whole. But then he's given this second chance with Ellie. And throughout this entire campaign, this long campaign, you see these characters growing with one another. They become so close, inseparable. She finally finds a daughter again. He finds a reason to live. And then at the end of the game, you know, they've traveled across the entire country to try and save the world because she's so special, she's immune. They can make a cure out of her only to learn that it would kill her. So then he has this tragic decision to make. Does he lose the one thing that he cares about in the world, the thing he was just given a second chance with? Or does he just take her and condemn the world to not having a cure? While the cure wasn't guaranteed, it's still an extremely tough decision to make that had crazy consequences as a result. There was so much emotion in that. And in this wet fart of a game, there's nothing even close to that because characters will die and you don't even remember their names. And I'm not talking about just like throwaway characters. I'm talking about some of the main characters. They'll just get killed in a pathetic way and you don't even know who they were or what they did. And it's hard to talk about this without getting into spoilers, but almost every character death is immediately forgotten by the entire cast. And it's hard to talk about this without bringing up spoilers, so I'm just going to give you fair warning. I'm going to bring in some spoilers right now, so if you don't want to be spoiled, just skip this part. But it's important that I use this to talk about my point so people understand where I'm coming from. The characters in this game get introduced and forgotten. There's no background, there's no development, there's nothing. They stay the same throughout the entire game, and you barely see them, by the way. And I'm talking major characters, not throwaways. For example, Jesse. Jesse's a character you meet early on. He impregnates Dina. Dina is the main love interest of Ellie. Dina herself has no real character about her other than the fact she makes jokes sometimes, but that's about it. You don't really get to see too much of Dina and really care for Dina because she just doesn't have much of a role to play, and even less for Jesse.
Jesse impregnates her. Jesse's even a hero at one point, but in total, Jesse has about 6 scenes in the entire game. And then Jesse gets killed. He gets shot by Abby as he comes out of a door and is never mentioned again. Not by Dina, not by anyone. He just gets shot and it's like he never existed. It's like that bullet fucking erased him from the universe's memory. It's the same for every other major character. There's a character named Manny he's in the game for a little bit. You know, he's there quite a bit. And the only thing you know about Manny is he loves his dog and he says pendejo a lot. And then Manny gets shot in the face right in front of Abby, and Abby just leaves, just jumps over some cover and then leaves. She never mentions Manny again. She doesn't even seem bothered by Manny's death, and Manny is totally forgotten. All of these new characters they introduce have no fucking development at all, or personality, or anything about them. They're just bland, flat characters, except for 2. There's only 2 characters in this entire game I felt were actually decently written characters that were interesting. I'm talking Yara and Lev, 2 kids that come from a cult, and it has a lot of shit going on there, and they actually are interesting characters that play a pretty big role, and I think they were definitely the highlights of the new cast, the only ones they seemed to even tried with. Abby, I think, could have been a good villain and a good character if they had known how to build her. She stays this cartoonishly evil, mysterious villain for like 9 hours of the game, and then they give you like 12 hours to spend with her, all through like flashbacks. You play flashback with flashbacks inside of a flashback. It really just feels like the whole game was out of order. They had decent events, like they actually had well-written events in their flashbacks. I think their flashbacks were actually the highlights of the game. The time you spend with Joel in the flashback, Abby's flashbacks, I actually think those were well-written and enjoyable to experience, but it's like they didn't know where to put them in the game. It's like the game was just so rushed that they just randomly edited these things in. If they had actually ordered these things in a cohesive manner where you start the game with Ellie and Joel, spending time together and growing, and then you go in to Joel's tragic demise at the hands of a fucking golf club, which is a really pathetic death, by the way, but Joel needed to die. I think Last of Us 2, he needed to die. There needed to be consequences for what he did at the Firefly base, so I think that decision was right, but executed like absolute fucking diarrhea. Literal fucking fungal diarrhea. It was terribly executed, and it just felt so random because for the first 2 hours of the game, Joel's not even there. He's just in the background. The only time you even hear Joel talked about or seen is when Ellie's like, yeah, I fucking hate Joel. I'm tired of Joel. I hate him. And then Joel gets killed, and Ellie's like, well, now I want revenge. It just feels out of order. If they had taken those flashbacks with Ellie and Joel and put them leading up to his death, that would have had so much more of an emotional impact. It would have been significantly better. And then right after Joel's death, if you immediately went into Abby and her backstory, you would humanize her and all the people around her that you're about to go revenge to death, and you'd have real attachment to those characters in that setting. But instead, you have everything so fucking mishmashed all over the place, it'll have you brutally murder some random person, and then 6 hours later, it'll give you a flashback of who that person was and why you should feel guilty for what you did. But by that point, you've already fucking forgotten about that because that character had no weight at the time. It just feels so poorly put together. I have no other words for it. It just feels so goddamn lazy. It's like the homework was rushed, so they started placing paragraphs all over the place, and by the end, you have some nonsensical mishmash of fucking garbage. And I think it could have been great, because like I said, those flashbacks are the only parts in the game that are well written. Outside of that, you have some stinky fucking dialogue that doesn't feel natural like the first game did. It's just not good. The narrative, everything about the storytelling, I didn't like at all. I liked a lot of the ideas and a lot of the places I think it wanted to go, but it just didn't do it well. It couldn't do it well with the way they had everything set up. It just, no one likes going through a ton of flashbacks all out of order, and especially when it's talking about things that happened 9 hours before. There's a fucking talk about a bar fight and a bar scene at the beginning of the game, and you don't get to see what that was actually about until 17 hours later. And by that point, you're like, who the fuck cares about those people at the fucking bar? We're way past that. It's just very frustrating. Very fucking frustrating, and it's hard to believe that this is the story they wanted to tell after the first Last of Us. After that beautiful narrative, it's hard to believe this is what they came back with. But now that I've gotten all that out of the way, there are 2 areas I think Last of Us 2 improves on over the first Last of Us. The first one's an obvious one, visually. I think visually this game is probably one of the best I've seen in a long time. It is absolutely gorgeous. The atmosphere is stunning, absolutely beautiful, breathtaking. It has you going through some incredible environments, and I think it is just absolutely gorgeous, 100%. And I also think the soundtrack, the score to this game, wonderful as well. Really was vibing with the sound in this game. I think they absolutely crushed it there. As far as gameplay goes, it's the exact same gameplay from fucking 7 years ago. It's the exact same gameplay from the first Last of Us. There's no tweaks, there's no improvements. It is exactly the goddamn same for the most part, with almost nothing new added to it. So, I mean, it's serviceable. There's nothing wrong with it. Over the course of the campaign, it gets extremely tedious, I'll say. But again, the gameplay is fine. The gameplay is absolutely fine. I wish there was a little more innovation. I don't think it was necessary since, you know, it's not broke. If it's not broke, don't fix it. But I would have liked to see them explore a couple more ideas here, or maybe just anything new when it came to actual combat, and they didn't. So I was a little let down there, but it's not like a big deal that they kept the exact same formula when it came to combat. I understand, and that's not really something I can hold against them. I also do really like a lot of the sections where you're running away in a panic away from either the infected or some evil people. They'll have you run through these really chaotic environments with so much shit going on, and I always just love those scenes. I think Naughty Dog does a great job of these cinematic set pieces that have you doing some crazy shit. And I also do like a lot of the battles that they force upon you when it comes to like a scripted encounter with something. I think they do a good job of setting all that up. But there are two boss battles in this fight, and both boss battles have the exact same moveset. I mean, two like actual boss battles where, you know, you actually have to fight and it's not just one shot and it's done. There's two boss battles where it's basically hand-to-hand combat, and they have the exact same moveset, which I found super lazy. Like, you only have two boss battles, you couldn't at least mixed it up. They have the same fucking weapon and use the same fucking moves. Like, I would have liked to see at least some kind of difference in how you fight the bosses, but I mean, it's not a huge deal. It's just something that kind of bugged me about it. But yeah, I would never consider this a bad game or like some terrible game. And if this wasn't The Last of Us 2, I think it would have been a fine game. I think it would have been much better than it is. But I mean, this is The Last of Us 2. There's a certain expectation that you have to deliver on here, and I think it very much falls flat on that. And that expectation is telling a really powerful and unique, thought-provoking story. This doesn't do that, and it doesn't even feel like it tries to. This is a generic revenge bad, revenge super bad, and revenge still bad plot, with no attempts to make it anything more than that. And it doesn't even have the decency to surround itself with characters that they care about, the writers care about, because these characters, like I said, have no character development. They have nothing about them. There's no info about these characters, and they're just killed off, thrown away, forgotten. They don't even really seem to serve a purpose. They just seem to be here for the sake of cannon fodder. Like, it feels like they're only there to be like, hey, look, revenge made you kill this person. You remember this person you killed 6 hours ago? Well, this person actually was kind of a good person. And did you know they were pregnant? That's another thing. I want to bring that up. This fucking game pulls the they're pregnant card 3 separate times. 3 separate times the she's pregnant or a surprise pregnancy reveals something. He did it 3 times. It feels like Neil Druckmann here just totally forgot how to make a character emotional or have you care about a character. So he just went with the shock of, wow, you just killed a mother. You just killed a baby too. Can you believe that? I bet you can see how bad revenge is now, huh? I bet you feel like shit now, huh? Because revenge is bad. Look what you just did. That was a pregnant lady. He does it 3 times, 3 separate pregnancies. And the writing, again, is so fucking dumb. There's a character in the game who is pregnant, and then she decides she wants to go to the front lines. Like, they told her, hey, look, you should stay inside. And she's fucking 8 months pregnant. She's literally about to give birth. And she's like, no, actually, I want to go to the front lines. So she goes to the front lines, gets in 3 car accidents, literally gets into a Molotov cocktail exchange fight, fucking Molotov cocktail party, and then getting shot at, shooting at people, on diving, fucking dolphin diving, fucking belly first, all while pregnant. It's hard to care about characters where it seems like the writers don't even care about them, making stupid shit like that, decisions like that. And then again, I can't fucking stop talking about how bad the story and writing is. Fuck. They also use the animal card a lot. Again, that's another thing I see from developers that don't know how to make anything emotional about a character. So then they put an animal in the situation to elicit that emotion, because it's obviously a lot harder to do something bad to an animal, even in a video game. So to have that be an element shows like, wow, look how evil revenge is. You just killed an animal. Or look how good this person is because they just love an animal. You just played fetch with a dog that you killed. It just feels so damn fucking stupid. It feels like it was written by actual amateurs, like as their first game. It feels like an indie game's writing where they're just now learning how to make something emotional and trying to figure it out. But they had already accomplished this in the first Last of Us. They had a ton of good shit going on in that game. You felt attached to the characters. In this game, you don't even remember their names. It just, I can go on and on, but this game was just extremely disappointing. Plugging The Last of Us 2 into the moist meter, I'm giving The Last of Us 2 a 55%. Again, it's not a bad game, and really the main negative about this is its narrative. Its narrative is truly fucking terrible, and again, I got really bored with the gameplay. I'll admit it. I got so fucking bored with the gameplay. Every single encounter plays out the exact same. By the time you reach in-game, you're just playing it the exact same way you played in the first fucking stage of the first hour, you know? There's no development of the gameplay, and it got so boring for me to keep doing the exact same strategies, fighting the exact same way with only a couple of guns to choose from and only a couple ways of approaching a fight or stealthing through it and grabbing. It just got tedious. It's not a bad game, which is why it's not below 50%. It's an above average game. There is a lot of quality here when it comes to its visuals and a lot of its art direction, and obviously its acting is second to none. But it is so incredibly disappointing as a follow-up to the first Last of Us. It truly is.
The Moist Meter is a proud partner of our comic book series Godslap and Plague Seeker. Both are available at badegg.co. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. I had high expectations of this game. I really liked Breath of the Wild, so I wanted this game to slap, and it did. This is a banger. It did not disappoint. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give real quick thoughts before getting into the meat of it, because I just want to get the quick and dirty out of the way immediately. Most astute observers will notice that this game isn't some kind of incredible graphical update or wild departure from Breath of the Wild. It's very similar. And that's true. Your eyes aren't deceiving you. They're not playing tricks on you. Tears of the Kingdom is very similar to Breath of the Wild, but it is a better Breath of the Wild. It is an improved Breath of the Wild. And that being said, that doesn't mean it's just a $70 DLC. This has so much more content in it, as well as entirely new creative systems with all of the like Ultra Hand abilities, and everything that you can do in this game is shit you couldn't do in Breath of the Wild. It is substantially more content, so it is just the better Breath of the Wild. The map is the same for the most part, yes, like the actual core surface map, but they added the Sky Islands as well as the depths, both of which are huge, and they offer a lot to do. So it's not like it's short on content. It took me like 25 hours to beat start to finish without doing most of the side quests, by the way. So, I mean, that did mean I was getting one shot by like every enemy ever. It turns into a goddamn fucking Soulsborne challenge fundamentally for me, but that made it even more fun for me. But the point is, it's a long game. This isn't just a $70 DLC, and I want to make that clear. There is so much they added to this, and it is all incredible. It makes it the best version of Breath of the Wild possible. Now, I want to go ahead and get some of my big complaints out of the way, really my only complaints out of the way immediately as well. All of the complaints I have really are because it's on the Switch. I can't even really hold it against the game itself. It sucks playing a game this beautiful, a full-blown, full-boner Red Alert masterpiece at 30 frames per second. That is a crime. To take something so beautiful and spit on it with 30 frames per second because of the Switch's limited capabilities is insulting. I know you can't see me right now, but I just slapped my chair. I'm getting so animated and heated about it. There is no excuse for 2023 gaming to have 30 FPS. That's just a fucking Switch classic because Nintendo is an archaic group of fossils that refuse to upgrade and get with the times and make modern hardware. So the Switch face fucks it here with 30 frames, which sucks. So it doesn't really get a chance to shine in a modern light, so a lot of people immediately write it off as being dated and not worth $70, which is so fucking silly, but it is a legitimate complaint. To want 60 FPS in 2023 is not something that's unreasonable, and it's not entitled gamer shit. It's just the standard that you would expect from AAA quality, especially at the $70 price tag, by the way. So yeah, that is absolutely a big problem. And of course, because it's on the Switch, the visuals can only be so good. The graphics can only look so nice. Luckily, Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, much like Breath of the Wild, is carried heavily by its art direction. It does a lot of heavy lifting for its visuals in order to mask the limitations of its hardware. So thanks to very good choices with its art and visuals, it's able to transcend the stinkiness of the graphical fidelity. Like, it's not a big complaint for me, but I understand people that are used to modern games are once again going to be like, wow, this looks like shit. I mean, and that's just the Switch, baby. That's that goofy, quirky little thing doing what it does best. Reminding us that Nintendo is very out of touch. It's fucking running off like 50-year-old hardware. It was dated when it released, and now it's even more dated now. I can rant about the Switch all day and night. I'm still shocked it's not using dial-up. I can't believe they even have a model that has an Ethernet port on it. I wouldn't even think they'd bother. But yeah, those are my main complaints. That it's 30 FPS, and yes, the graphics aren't amazing, but I really do think that when you're in the game, there are breathtaking moments. Like, I think it looks beautiful a lot of the times, and it's complemented by an absolutely spectacular soundtrack. So now it's time to start going gushing granny mode here. Tears of the Kingdom it's probably my second favorite Zelda game, just behind Ocarina of Time, and the only thing that holds Ocarina of Time over Tears of the Kingdom for me is the nostalgia. That is a game that is so near and dear to my heart that I don't think any Zelda game will ever beat it, but Tears of the Kingdom is, I think, the best Zelda game, like, really. The amount of freedom you have in this game, not only with exploration, of course you come to expect that, but also with the way you tackle everything. Puzzles have even more freedom for solving. Like Breath of the Wild, you can solve them in crazy ways, but in Tears of the Kingdom, it gets even fucking wilder. The tools they give you to play around with are just a joy to experiment with. So I'm sure you've already seen a lot of the memes and a lot of the videos created using one of the powers called Ultra Hand. In this game, you get powers that allow you to do things in the world, such as manipulate objects, manipulate machinery and technology. So you have like fans, you have rockets, you have all kinds of cool things at your disposal. And with one of the abilities called Ultra Hand, you can pick it up and move it around and stick it together. So you can build entire houses out of it. You've probably seen people build a functioning mech. So you could put together a bunch of different materials, a bunch of weapons as well, and turn it on, and you can control a mech and wander around the world in a goddamn fucking Gundam. It is so fun. And when you're solving puzzles in this game, it's always like enjoyable, because most of the time you're probably not even going to do it the way they intended. There's a set path for a lot of them, but you can tackle it however you want. They don't punish you for it. You can get as wacky as you want to get. I think 90% of the puzzles in this game, I did not solve the intended method. I used all kinds of stupid shit, like putting two fans together and then a steering wheel and then just flying around on a little like hoverboard Segway. It's just so fun what you can build with all of the tools here and how you can approach everything, including combat. So there's another ability called Recall, which is you can use Recall on certain objects and certain things, and it'll just take it back through the process of wherever it was moving or whatever it was doing at the time. So you can even make traps out of this. You can take like 3 logs and a wheel, stick the logs onto the wheel and spin it around in a circle with Ultra Hand, and then drop it. And then you can recall it, and then it'll start spinning all on its own, and you can take that, and you can lure enemies into it, and it'll just start beating the shit out of enemies. It'll be like a wipeout thing, or like a fucking MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge, Takeshi's Castle type of obstacle course. You can make them run through this gauntlet of traps. It's so fun. Like, it never gets old experimenting with it. You can make an Apache helicopter. Like, the possibilities are truly limitless. So I cannot praise that system enough. I think it is so fun. And of course, it also has fusing, which is its core gameplay mechanic. So fusing allows you to take these objects in the world and you can fuse them to weapons. Pretty much everything is fusible. Like, if you can dream it, if you can touch it, you can probably fuse it. So like, for example, if you go to a bomb flower, you can fuse the bomb to your shield, and then when you do a shield surf, where you jump onto your shield and surf around, the bomb will blow up and give you a giant boost, a giant jump, which to me honestly reminds me of old Legend of Zelda speedrunning with bomb boosting. So that was a cute callback. I don't know if it's on purpose, but like, there's just so many capabilities with fusing. You can fuse bosses' toenails to your swords to give them an attack power boost. You can fuse different gems to your weapons in order to give them different qualities, like lightning, fire, shooting fireballs. It's so good. It's so fun, and it makes everything a really great experience. Until, of course, your weapon breaks, because the durability in this game, you'll swing it 3 times and break it on a fucking log or something. Durability system's back. I'm not mad about that. It's the only thing I really didn't like about Breath of the Wild, like, as a core mechanic. I just find, and this is across the board, not just Legend of Zelda, that durability systems are kind of an anti-fun mechanic, where it's just tedium for the sake of tedium. Yeah, like, I understand there can be a durability system. Like, for this game, I think the durability system would have made sense on weapons that you fuse, that when you fuse a weapon, it has a certain amount of hits before the whole thing breaks. That would make sense. But there could still be core weapons that didn't need to break, or at least not make it so harsh when it comes to how quickly a lot of these weapons break. Because what ends up happening is, this is a personal preference again. There's many people that like the durability system. I'm just voicing how I feel about it. For me, when there's a system like this, I end up hoarding so many weapons thinking I'll use them later, and I ended up finishing this game with 10 weapons that I'd been saving for like 12 hours, just waiting for the right time because I was afraid to lose them. Now, there is a way of repairing these items, but it's really convoluted and tedious once again. You have to feed it to an Octo Rock. I guess it's not the most convoluted thing, but you feed it to an Octo Rock, and it's a process that is kind of a headache. So, the durability system, I'm not a huge fan of, but many people will be, so I'm not going to necessarily chalk it up as a negative. I just wish it wasn't so cutthroat. I don't like cycling through weapons that frequently. Now let's move on a little bit here and talk about the narrative. It's very standard, generic shit. It's not going to really blow you away. Granted, I haven't got the true ending yet. I haven't finished all the memories, so maybe there's a lot more there that really fleshes it out. But it's not a whole lot to it. And it's also following the same Zelda formula we're all used to by now. So you're going to these temples, you're talking to these sages, you're fighting a boss at the end of the temple after setting up 4 or 5 networks that connect to the center platform to raise you up. Pretty standard stuff. But one thing that I actually didn't like at all is that when you do a temple, no matter what temple, you get the exact same ending to the temple, verbatim. You get a cutscene after defeating the temple boss, and they say the exact same shit with the exact same words, and the only difference is the race of the person that you have saved here or brought aboard your team. So that was a little frustrating that it was literally verbatim, so you kept getting fed the same fucking cutscene over and over again throughout the game, at least in the core story components for the main objectives. But it's not that big of a deal. That's a bit of a nitpick. I just would have liked them to maybe do something a little different there, but again, most people I can't imagine are actually playing Zelda for like an incredible story. I actually like most of the lore to Zelda, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the games are extremely well written, because half the dialogue throughout the main objectives is them repeating everything they've said a million times already. Oh, the imprisoning war is when this happened? Wait, Link, you're telling me that the imprisoning war is when this happened with Ganondorf? The Demon King? Wait, the Demon King and the imprisoning war, so you're telling me that this is what happened? And they'll say that a million fucking times. And no matter who you talk to in like the towns, they all say the same shit. Like they're all just fucking like cursed to have the same thoughts. But again, that's not a huge deal, because that's not what the game is really focusing on. But I will say, even if the writing isn't like incredible, the story beats are really fun, and they lead to really great, spectacular boss fights, as well as really pretty moments that I really had a smile on my face for. Even if some of them were outrageously goofy and silly, they were still very fun. So that's what's most important here. Zelda is just all about the fun, and this is like the most fun Zelda they've made so far. I think it just goes so hard. I think it is just truly spectacular. Now let's talk a little bit about the Sky Islands and the depths. So most of the marketing material revolved around the Sky Islands. So that you would expect to be really great. And it is. I really like all the Sky Island components. I actually didn't spend a ton of time up there, admittedly, but all of the stuff that did filter through it was a lot of fun. And they give you a lot of tools to make it fun. Like, you can make an entire fucking airplane up there if you wanted to and just live in the Sky Islands. You never even have to touch the surface world. It's really pretty, and there is quite a lot to do up there. It adds a lot. And then, of course, the depths. The depths, you go underground, and it is a huge network of very powerful enemies, as well as something called Gloom, where it'll start taking away hearts. Not permanently, it just restricts your access to those hearts, so you can't, like, eat and get that heart back. You have to remove the Gloom or go back to the surface world. And there's a lot to do there. They have powerful weapons, they have a lot of stuff, there's whole quest lines that go through there. So both the Sky Islands and Depths offer a lot of content and a lot of exploration and a lot more to do. So again, it's not just the same Breath of the Wild map and nothing else. It is the same map
with some tweaks and some additions to it, as well as entire new sections with the Sky Islands and the Depths, which are just as big, if not bigger, than the stuff you can do on the surface. So I just really like the game a lot. I'm trying to talk about it as much as I can without spoiling a lot, even though I feel like I've already told you a lot of the mechanics that many of you probably haven't seen before, but they're just so fun I can't help but just bring them up. So sorry for any minor spoilers. But anyway, let's plug Tears of the Kingdom in the moist meter. I'm going to give this puppy a nice clean 90%. I think the game is spectacular, and it is only held back by the platform that it's on. If this game was on anything but the Switch, it would be hailed as one of the fucking crowning achievements of gaming. The Switch really holds this fucking thing back so much, and it's really upsetting. But overall, I really do think this game is a must play. It is so fun, and it is just something that you will constantly be wanting to play this game. Like, even once I'm done here, I'm still going back and playing more of it, which I don't do super often anymore. Usually I don't engage with too much post-game content in most single-player titles, but this one I absolutely will be. And I do plan on at least trying the speedrun, assuming it's not too difficult for someone as dumb as me. So, we'll see. But I love the game. I think it's great. That's about it. So, yep. Huge thanks to ourselves for sponsoring this Moist Meter. Godslap is a comic series written by myself, Jackson, Matt, Danny, and Aubrey Sitterson. It follows the story of a character named Aeus, who's an extremely powerful slapper in a world where slapping is king. Issue 3 just dropped. It's all available at badegg.co, and shit is starting to pop off. Aeus is being hunted by a mysterious foe named Defister, who, after swan diving through a hospital, picks up Aeus' trail and hunts him to the ends of the earth with his sidekick Olfactor. And also, our newest comic series, Plague Seeker, just came out. Issue 0 is available at badegg.co. It's written entirely by myself and edited by Jackson. It's set in a world 1,000 years after an apocalyptic event known as the Calamity. An asteroid hits Earth, and it brought with it mutations that changed all of its inhabitants. Now the world is infested with things called plagues, and atop the food chain sits 8 great plagues that control the entire world, and only one man stands against them, the Plague Seeker, who has an insatiable appetite to devour those 8 great plagues. So all of this is available at badegg.co, so please check it out. So yeah. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Netflix show Arcane, which is based on League of Legends, and I want to just start by saying it slaps. But on paper, it sounds like an absolute diarrhea disaster of an idea. Taking a video game and adapting it to any other medium almost never works. So taking League of Legends and turning it into an animation probably didn't have that many people ripping their shirt off and twirling it over their heads in excitement, unless of course you were already a League of Legends fan. Then I imagine you were pretty hyped for it. The crazy thing about League of Legends is everyone's at least heard of the game and they're familiar with it to some degree. And a lot of people, like myself, have probably even struggled with a League of Legends problem. I'm actually 3 years sober. I played from seasons 3 to 6 daily, but then I kicked the habit realizing it was bad for my mental health. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't occasionally get that itch to hop back in the Crucible, take the Summoner's Rift by the tits and go wild. I still get that little devil on my shoulder telling me it's time to get back into League. And I even still sometimes watch the League tier list and I keep up with the meta, even watch the Worlds, of course. The thing about a League of Legends addiction is it's a lot like being addicted to heroin, except League of Legends is more embarrassing and more addictive. All of this is more like a cry for help. This has nothing to do with Arcane. The point I'm trying to make is everyone's at least heard of the show, and a lot of people maybe had a negative experience with League, so maybe wrote off Arcane right away because they just don't want anything to do with League lore or anything. And I think that's a real fucking shame because Arcane is an incredible show. Regardless of your feelings on the game, this show stands on its own 2 feet. There is really nothing in common with Arcane with League lore. All Arcane does is borrow some of the characters and settings from League, and it uses them in a totally original manner. There is no real crossover other than just having those familiar names and faces. Arcane is such a beautiful show. The animation in Arcane is top-notch. Riot did not spare any expense here. It is fucking gorgeous. And a lot of times it felt like I was watching a goddamn AMV. Like, it felt like an old-school anime music video sometimes because they have, like, these original tracks that'll play throughout the show, and it'll be complemented by either action or just, like, a full-blown montage, emotional montage of something happening with a character or multiple characters, and it's so beautiful. Like, it's done so well. Like there's one scene in particular that really stands out to me. And I'm trying not to give any spoilers here, and I won't actually. I won't even mention the scene. Fuck it. The Just trust me when I say when the music kicks on, expect something cool to happen like at every moment because the music will often be accompanied by really great action or just some really well done scene that's just elevated by a great background track. The thing about the show that caught me off guard the most is that it's not as family friendly as I expected. I went into it thinking it'd be like a squeaky clean, pretty generic, pretty cookie cutter experience. Like, hey, kids will like this and League fans will appreciate seeing the characters come to life, but it won't have any depth to it. That is dreadfully wrong. That's a lot of diarrhea dog shit. I was very wrong about that. That's not I'm not saying it's like the most mature show ever made. You're not going to come in here and see like fucking war crimes being presented and exploring a character's experience with a like abusive alcoholic father and seeing everything that comes along with that baggage. But it's a show that isn't just for a younger audience or for a family. They also do use explicit language. There's fuck tossed around. There's shit. There's blood. There's no cum yet. But they do tackle more heavy themes as well as explore darker moments in the series, which was surprising to me and I appreciated it. They gave a lot of depth to these characters. It was a lot more than I expected, a lot deeper and a lot better written than I expected going into it. The writing really did impress me. They're not afraid to kill off characters, though there is a pattern that I'm noticing that I won't mention here due to spoilers that is a bit disappointing with how they handle some deaths and some other characters that don't die. I'm trying not to give away anything here, but maybe I'll do spoilers at the end and get more into it. But overall, I was impressed that they're not afraid to kill off characters that they spend a lot of time building up. And I appreciate that. They're definitely going the extra mile to make this a show worth getting invested in with the narrative. It's not some like lazily written garbage. The characters feel alive. The world feels alive. They did a great job of building this world. You're introduced to a lot of different areas and a lot of different people and places and different positions of power and how all of that is structured. It just works super well. I think the show really does a great job of bringing anyone into the narrative and getting them interested in the show. The action is also really good. It's so fluid. Like, they didn't cut corners here. It's not janky, and it feels pretty meaty, especially when Vi's delivering a fucking biblical beatdown on some bad people. They just truly didn't cut any corners anywhere. Even if you absolutely fucking hate League of Legends, you will still probably like this show. My girlfriend hates League, hates the entire idea of League, and really liked this show. Because the characters are well written, the narrative is good, and it is a beautiful show. The animation, I can't stress enough, is just visually gorgeous. And it's a very unique style that I haven't seen explored before, at least not thoroughly. I've seen a couple animated shorts in a similar style, but never a full show in the same style to this level, where everything is super fluid. Like, there's never any moments where characters are just standing still doing nothing. They're always moving. Everything is constantly in motion. And I can just really appreciate how much life that brings to the universe. I just don't have very many negative things to say about this. I do have a couple things that I'd like to bring up, though. And this is going to be spoiler, so a bit of a spoiler warning. It's going to be quick, but here come a little spoilers. The thing that I mentioned a bit earlier with death, the thing that they're making very clear is that League of Legends characters are the only ones that are unkillable in the show. Every character that has died so far is a character that has not existed in the game. But the game characters are still totally fine, still building, and I feel like that's a pattern that will probably continue for a while. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe they come out of the gate swinging in Season 2 and all League of Legends characters just fucking blow up. They just get blasted by a plague or something. I don't know. But right now it just seems like they do not want to kill those League characters, which I obviously understand, but I worry that it might cheapen the narrative a bit if you just know these League characters are going to be fine for the entire show. Another thing that I'd like to critique a bit is I think they're trying to cram too much into too short a time period. Like, they're doing too much all at once. So some of the relationships just really get wild quickly. Like Vi and Caitlyn, they go from hating each other in one episode to being inseparable in the next. And I just feel like the show's missing that crucial building to that point because it looks like they just flipped the switch and they went from enemies and really, suspicious of each other to being fully trusting and fully open to each other. Like they don't want to ever be apart. It feels like they did so much all at once that this relationship didn't get a chance to get there naturally, and it just happened in one episode. Which isn't the worst thing in the world because it keeps the pacing fast, and this is a very fast-paced show, but I still just thought that was something worth at least mentioning. Spoilers over. Alright, and now there's still a little bit more I want to talk about before plugging this into the moist meter formula. I would like to mention how great a job they did with the main villain here. I think the villain of Season 1 was so well done. They weren't just cartoonishly evil, they had some very evil moments, but overall it was a character that you could almost sympathize with, you could understand where they're coming from, and you'd be upset with the way they'd be getting there, but you could still at least see that the overall goal wasn't just some burn the world down, fuck everything. It was a character that had real depth, and by the end of the season, there was just a lot to appreciate with what they did with the villain. And I always like when a show's able to make a villain that you don't just absolutely root against at every moment, and that it's not a deep villain, just there to be a punching bag for the good guys to look great against. I like that they made a very good effort to bring that villain to life, and I think they did a great job. Alright, now let's plug this into the moist meter. I'm giving Arcane a 95%. This is another rare 95, but I do definitely believe this is a must-watch show, even for people that don't like League of Legends or have no interest in it. This is a beautiful show, and that's a word I've used like 20 times already, but it's the best way to describe it. The visuals here, the animation is so good. It is a unique-looking show that delivers a great narrative to go along with it, and the action, there's always action, so if you're here just for like some good fights, you're definitely going to get that here too. It just has something to offer to everyone. It's a show that I feel the same way I did about Invincible, where I walked away from it being like, yep, that's a show I can see a lot and most people really appreciating. Arcane is just a standout show, and I think they absolutely fucking crushed it. I haven't had any interest in League lore in years, and I fucking loved it. I was also getting a little giddy seeing some characters I recognize come into the show, but that didn't matter that much. If you don't have that connection to characters, it's not going to matter, because they'll make you care about them through good writing. I just really liked pretty much everything about the show, and I'm super excited for Season 2 whenever that'll come out, so that's about it. So yeah, welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Cyberpunk 2077, the most hyped video game I've ever seen. The hype for this game would have you believe that it was going to change gaming forever. Even before anyone ever picked up the game, they were talking about how it was going to usher in an era of peace and progress for the human species and revolutionize our medical industry in the real world and give us wetter dreams. The hype for this game was an absolute curse for the final product. No matter what CD Projekt Red delivered, it could be the best video game ever made. It was still going to disappoint people who put these incredible, unrealistic expectations on it. But now that the game is finally out, the question begs to be asked, does it live up to the hype? Has gaming truly evolved? Have we entered this new, enlightened era for our species thanks to Cyberpunk 2077? God bless Cyberpunk 2077? The answer is no. This game never stood a chance at reaching those expectations, but that's not to say the game is bad. In fact, it's a good game. I'd even go as far as to call it a very good game. But there's a lot of problems with it, the biggest of course being its performance. I have to talk about that right away. This game is borderline unplayable on PlayStation 4 and just consoles in general. It barely gets above 20 FPS. The bugs are outrageous, not just goofy bugs, but actual game-breaking ones where missions will just not work and you'll have to go through hoops to try and make the game fucking function. It is a disaster in terms of its performance. It is the buggiest game I have ever played at launch, aside from something like the Culling 2, but that's not really fair because you can't call the Culling 2 a buggy game considering the only glitch that game had was the fact that nobody bought it so the games couldn't start. It wasn't really a performance thing, just no one wanted that piece of shit. But this game is absolutely disastrous with its performance. Even on PC, I encountered so many problems. Missions I couldn't start, NPCs that wouldn't spawn. I had to save, load multiple times and try tons of different ways of trying to make a single NPC spawn so I could start a side quest. I had to fucking set up a Rube Goldberg machine like, maybe if I set up my car to self-drive itself to me, and then I save load, and then hop in the car, maybe then the NPC will spawn. I just had to come up with all kinds of theory-crafted scientific hypotheses to make the fucking NPC spawn to start some of these quests. It was really frustrating. There's a genuine problem with this game and its performance. It doesn't really run that well. Even on like the best settings on the best PC, you're still going to have FPS drops. You're still going to encounter so many glitches. It's crazy. I am actually shocked at the state that this game is in on launch. Now, that aside, let's actually talk about the game once you can actually play it. It's good. I do like it. I think the narrative is great. I think most of the characters are very well written and very interesting. I absolutely love the world. The universe here in Cyberpunk 2077 is not only visually breathtaking and one of the best looking games I've ever seen in terms of its graphics and its art style and just visuals in general, but it just feels alive. As you're exploring Night City, you're going to encounter a ton of different shit. People asking for help. You know, there's a dude out there who's burnt his dick trying to get a dick augmentation, so now you have to drive him to the clinic so he can repair his penis before it burns itself off. There's just so much to do, and there's just so many things to encounter and just explore in the world. It really does feel alive. It's not like you're just wandering around a barren wasteland with no one in it, nothing to do, and just putting fingers up your asshole as you wait for the next side quest or main quest. There's just tons of tiny things you can do around the world, and I really appreciate that. The universe, the world, it is absolutely 10 out of 10 in that department. Great. The game is beautiful to look at. The design choices are great. I love the aesthetic of the game. I can't talk enough about how much I enjoyed that. And to complement all of it, you have great soundtrack. Every fucking song in this game is a banger. It really is. I didn't hear a single song that came on that I was like, damn, that shit is stinky. It's not good. I was always like, fuck, turn that shit up. I don't care if I get DMCA'd on Twitch. That's a great fucking song right there. The soundtrack in this game is so good. The score is great. They crushed it in that department as well. But now, we're going to get on to some of the things that I think are a bit of a shortcoming for it, even aside from just the massive glaring problems with performance. I think the gunplay is super stiff. I think it's clunky. I think it feels like it's straight out of 2009. It is not the best gunplay. It's not tight. It's very floaty. I just didn't really find myself liking the gunplay that much. And the guns themselves I think are cool and pretty imaginative, but the main differences between guns are just stat changes. You'll get different categories of weapons, but it doesn't really change that much because every weapon kind of functions the same. And throughout my playthrough, I played on hard, and I never really encountered any times where I was like, damn, I need to mix and match my guns here to suit the enemies I'm facing. You basically just choose whatever gun has the highest damage output as just base DPS, instead of like, oh, I'm going up against robots, I should look for electrical damage elementals or anything. You never have to worry about that. You just choose whatever has the highest number like a fucking caveman. So I didn't like the gunplay. It didn't feel that great. There are a lot of options when approaching combat, such as hacking. You can scan enemies and quick hack them, which can do things like overheat them or turn off their eyesight for a second or make them forget they're in combat, which is all pretty cool, but it's just a novelty. It doesn't really do much to help you. It's kind of pointless, because in the time it takes to hack them, you could have just killed them with a gun or melee. I spent the majority of the game going through a melee build. I went for max coolness. There's a lot of perks and a lot of attribute points that you allocate in the game, and I went for the coolness category, which involves stealth and something called cold-blooded, which is passives that you stack up to give you other bonuses. I didn't really use stealth. Stealth was pretty boring, but the cold-blooded was pretty cool, and it worked really well with my melee build, so I went through the whole game just going absolutely just straight fucking wild on him. I had an electric baton and I just started one-shotting some of the big bosses towards the end and just bending cheeks over and putting both fists in their asshole. Melee build was pretty fucking great, and coupling my good weapons and good perks with good cyberware augments. Cyberware is another thing that you can be upgrading your character with, which is things that you'll find out in the world and from Ripper docs where you can add them to your character. That'll give you things like a double jump if you put that on your legs. It can give you other things like gorilla arms and mono wire, all kinds of different things that kind of change the way your character plays. And I do like cyberware a lot. But when it comes to the actual perks, I think a lot of the perks are really uninspired. It's just flat percentage increases. There's a few that do change how some of the things function fundamentally, but for the most part, the perks that you're getting are just percentage increases, which is a little boring. I would have liked to see a little more creativity from some of the perks instead of just, hey, putting a point in here gives you 5% bonus damage with blunt weapons. I would have liked to just see a couple other things that would change it up a bit. But there's so many things you can put points into. I understand that would just be also unrealistic to ask of them, so it's not a huge complaint, just a little nitpick there. I do like how much there is that you can play around with. There's a lot of things you can find. You can upgrade your weapons through finding crafting materials in the world, going to vending machines, scrapping some soda cans, get some parts, upgrade your weapons. Like, you're going to be doing a lot of min-maxing if you care about a really great build and just being overpowered fucking badass, traveling the night city. There's a lot you can do to min-max, and I like that. But again, I still do feel like the actual gameplay with guns and even melee to a certain extent is just very stiff and a bit outdated. And you're going to encounter glitches when doing that. Oftentimes when running my melee build, I'd run into a glitch where I'd beat someone to death and just absolutely club the shit out of them, clobber them, give them the old whopperoonie, and then I can't sprint for the rest of the mission. I'd have to like force load a save in order to get the ability to sprint back, and it was just a real headache. Things that are out of your control and just bugs that really shouldn't be here. Also, sticking in terms of gameplay here, the AI is sometimes godlike in this omniscient super being that's able to know exactly where you are and just smell your farts from across the map and hunt you down like a rabid animal. They'll be shooting you through cover, curving bullets around the pillar that you're hiding behind, and just popping a full round in your dick hole without you even being able to see them. And then some other times, the AI is the dumbest shit you've ever seen in the world, where you have to wonder, is the game even working anymore? The AI will be looking right at you while you're crouched. You can be in front of them, touching their shins, giving them a back massage, and they won't be alerted to your presence. So the AI is just really inconsistent with its difficulty. Again, I stayed on hard the whole game, and it was never really that challenging to begin with. But sometimes you'd have moments where you're just getting one shot from someone that you never saw, and they're using like a fucking slingshot or like shooting spitballs out of a straw, and they're one-shotting you at full health. And then other times you can take 1,000,000 bullets because they're like stormtroopers and can't hit you, or they just don't even fucking see you because they're just standing there on patrol with their eyes closed. It was just all over the place with its difficulty. So the gameplay really is probably one of the weakest parts about the game, of course, putting aside performance issues. Now, let's talk about the length of the game, because I see that being a complaint for a lot of people. 8 years for only 15, 20 hours, ridiculous, shit like that. The main missions, I finished the game in roughly 30-ish hours in total, and I did quite a few side missions, but I'd say the main missions probably did take me around like 18 hours or something like that. And the main missions were very good. It's a lot of dialogue, and for a lot of people that's a big turnoff all of a sudden, or at least they pretend it is. I remember when everyone was losing their fucking minds over how perfect Red Dead Redemption 2 is, and I'd say that had far more scenes of just dialogue than this game has. So I don't know why that's a complaint all of a sudden, but keep in mind, yes, the main missions have a lot of dialogue, it's a lot of exposition, but I think it's all good. I think it's all well written. When it's not glitching out, because oftentimes during these fucking cutscenes and during the dialogue, you'll have people shouting 1,000,000 lines at you because the dialogue's overlapping, so you have 9 conversations going when you're trying to get the fucking narrative fed to you, so you have no idea what's going on, so you have to reload in order to get the actual lines delivered at the right time, as opposed to 9 lines overlapping. So, but again, that's just another fucking bug in this game that happens way too often. When you're actually getting the narrative, though, I think it's good, it's well written, it's engaging, the story's good, the plot's nice. And the ending that I got, I thought it was a happy ending. I got a very happy ending, but it was a bit weak. There were a lot of things that were unresolved, and from what I saw of the other endings, none of the endings are all that great. Which isn't the biggest deal in the world, because the whole journey there is good, and I really liked it, especially Johnny Silverhand, and I see a lot of people calling out Keanu Reeves' acting, and admittedly, a lot of times it is flat. Like when he's supposed to be angry, he doesn't really sound angry, but it's Keanu Reeves, and I think it's still a very good performance for the most part, because it makes you care about the character. And I just like Keanu Reeves. I can't say anything fucking bad about Keanu Reeves. I still liked it. And Johnny Silverhand still is a cool character. But anyway, I keep getting off topic. The narrative is good. The main missions are good, but mostly dialogue. You will be just mainly experiencing dialogue when doing main missions. And yes, there is about 18 hours worth. The real meat of the game comes from the side quests and the side jobs and all the other missions that aren't with the main. This is where most of your character development is going to happen. This is where most of your bonding with the characters is going to happen. And this is also where some things can play into the ending. For example, I did a side quest line that allowed me to access some certain things in the ending that I wouldn't have been able to otherwise. So I think the side missions are probably the best part of the game. I found those to be extremely high quality, very interesting, and really got me to understand more about this very interesting cast of characters. So I think the side quests are spectacular, and there's a lot more action in those. It isn't just shooting once every 30 minutes in between dialogue. There's a lot more going on in the side quest than I'd say go on in the main quest in terms of action and shit. But I don't think it's a short game. I don't know why people are criticizing it. There's so much content here. There's a lot of meat in here. And especially if you care about min-maxing, there's so many cyberware augments and perks that you're going to want to access and points you want to put in certain places. Like, there's a lot. There is a lot of juice in this juice box. So I don't know where everyone's saying 8 years for like no content. I don't know where that's coming from. They clearly haven't played it or didn't really care to, actually play most of it. They just beelined the main story and did it on easy mode, game journalist mode, because it is not a short game. It really isn't. And overall, I'd say it is a good game, but I wouldn't call this a great game. I enjoyed my time with it. I didn't have crazy expectations of it going in. This is right around what I was expecting, so I was happy. In fact, this is better than I was expecting, so I was pleasantly surprised, to be honest. So plugging Cyberpunk 2077 in the moist meter, I would be giving this game an 80%, but I genuinely just can't justify it being that high when it's in this broken of a state. So I'm going to have to give this game a 70 because there is actual game-breaking problems with it. It is borderline unplayable on some consoles. Like, that's not acceptable. They should have put this baby back in the oven and given it more time to cook. Should have marinated a bit longer to iron out the bugs. I know everyone hates delays and people fucking called in sick to work for a month just to play it, but they should have fucking delayed it again because there's a lot of glaring issues with this game. So I think a 70% is right in line with what it deserves in its current state. Hopefully all those problems will get solved down the line because I do think it is a good game that I do think a lot of people would like if they weren't getting so frustrated with all of the broken parts of it. So yeah, welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Doom Eternal, follow-up to the mega hit Doom 2016, a game that I absolutely adored, and I'm happy to say Doom Eternal is an improvement in every possible area over Doom 2016. The game is extraordinary. It's a game that made me feel like a bigger, stronger man just from fucking playing the game. From the very second you turn on the game and you're greeted with the incredible soundtrack from Mick Gordon, you know you're in for a fucking high-octane thrill ride. It's so badass, it's gonna make you want to get a barbed wire tattoo while you're playing the game. It's just so good from the very second the game starts. It grabs you by the nutsack and never lets go. It constantly just has you putting your cock on the chin of demons constantly. The pacing is relentless. Full throttle aggression, non-stop action. It makes it feel like your blood has been replaced by diesel fuel. It is so incredible. It's such a refreshing experience. The FPS gameplay is so crisp, so smooth. The movement is magnificent. There's so many new mechanics this time around too. It's a lot deeper than Doom 2016. A lot of weapon variety and a lot of different purposes for each weapon, so you'll be constantly switching in between weapons during a fight because you're going to be mixing and matching what works best against what enemy. Let's say you need armor, well maybe you'll use the flame belch and then hit them with a blood punch so that we get like this fat fucking pinata explosion of armor drops. It's so good. There's a lot more strategy to it, a lot more depth, and it's a lot more fluid. It just feels incredible. When you go through a Slayer Gate, which is a really challenging optional arena that you can do, and if you beat it, you get a key, which unlocks a powerful weapon if you collect enough of those keys. You'll go through this gauntlet of thousands of demons, this horde of meat that just comes after you, from the most pathetic, pitiful, small demons, the demons from the person that pirated a movie one time, to these fucking hulking, gigantic beasts of legend, and you'll grit your teeth and fail multiple times on nightmare difficulty until you finally triumph and get that incredible reward. But all the while that you're getting your ass pounded, it doesn't hurt. It feels great because the maps are so well designed to complement high flying action and just constant movement that it just always is fun just to get in there, even if you are getting your shit pushed in. And you will eventually get better and push through it regardless of your level of talent in the game because you'll want to, because it's so goddamn fun. It is just so enjoyable. And I also like to say the narrative in this game I actually really enjoyed. I thought the narrative was really entertaining, albeit not the best written thing ever made or anything, but it was super fun. And it shows you just how fucking cool Doom Guy is. Just this remarkably imposing presence that everyone, man, woman, child, demon, angel, God himself fears and regrets creating. It's just really cool to have this really badass character and have a story all wrapped around how badass he is. I just really enjoyed that. And I can't compliment the soundtrack enough, by the way, because the soundtrack throughout the entire campaign is just a straight up banger. Real boner jams from Doom Eternal. Really, really solid stuff there. Everything is great. The aesthetic design, every level feels nice to play. Every map is so fucking nice to play around with. The only thing I felt was even a little bit clunky was swimming. I don't know why they even included swimming. It just slowed everything down, and it's not like they were puzzles or anything. It was more just a chore finding exactly what you needed to bash into. I just don't really understand why swimming was even here. That's like the only thing I could even criticize in the entire game, because everything else was fantastic. Finding secrets was fun, going off the beaten path and exploring was fun, and of course, just massacring hordes of demons never got old. I cannot express enough how much I enjoyed the campaign. The campaign was nice and long as well, so you get a lot of bang for your buck in the campaign, and then there is multiplayer. The multiplayer I don't think is bad, but I also don't really think it's good. It's just kind of really mediocre. It's just something that's kind of like this aftermath. Like you're riding the high of beating the campaign and you want more. And there is more. There's master levels and shit, but there's also multiplayer if you want like even more. And you'll go from like a full chub after the campaign to just kind of going a little soft from the multiplayer. Again, it's not bad. It's simple. There's a Slayer, there's 2 demons. It's a 1v2 scenario. You go against demons as you would in the campaign. You have regular AI demons that you fight. You get all the shit you got from them in the campaign, but there are 2 demons that are picked by human players and they're trying to kill you, obviously. So if you kill both demons, you win. If you kill one demon, the other demon has a respawn timer, and if he respawns, you have to kill them both again. You have to kill them both before one of them respawns. That's how the Slayer wins, and the demons win, obviously, if they kill you. There's a bunch of different powers that the demons can use. There's loadouts that you can use, different ability cards, shit like that. There is a little bit of depth to it, but I just didn't really find myself enjoying it all that much. I just think it was wasted potential not to create a multiplayer that was an arena shooter using the gameplay of Doom Eternal, because it would have fit absolutely beautifully with an arena shooter style. And I know arena shooters are pretty much dead these days, and I think that's a shame because arena shooters are a lot of fun, especially when they're done well, and I think it could have been done well here. Maybe in the future they'll add that, I don't really know, but as it stands, the multiplayer is just kind of like this afterthought. Like, you're not going to be getting this game to get lost in the multiplayer. That's just going to be something that you remember when you're just bored after beating the game for the 5th time over on Ultra Nightmare. It's just not great, not bad. And it doesn't bring the game down, I'd say. I don't think it really takes it down a notch or anything. So plugging Doom Eternal into the moist meter, I'm giving it a fat 95%. Everything in this game is done super well. It is the most fun I've had with a shooter in a long, long time. It is absolutely extraordinary. I streamed the whole thing at twitch.tv/moistcritical. You can see that I was an absolute monster at this game, by the way, so I was able to push this shit to its maximum potential. I was surprised the game didn't fucking crash on me with the stress testing I was putting it through. Incredible game, so much you can do with it, and I can't recommend it enough if you're a fan of high-paced, first-person shooting action. Great stuff.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Elden Ring. That's a sentence I never thought I'd say. I was one of those lunatic conspiracy theorists that didn't think Elden Ring was real and was never going to release, and now I'm out here eating my own ass. The game is out, and it is absolutely outstanding. I'm sure by now the majority of you have seen the reviews. 10 out of 10 is pretty much across the board, 100% on most major outlets. This thing is the goddamn valedictorian of gaming, it seems. And I will say, it lives up to the hype. It is absolutely fucking fantastic. It is an actual masterpiece. Now, I will say, with the PC version, which is what I played it on, there is one major flaw, and it's the only flaw I can even point out in this game at all. It is an inconsistent frame rate. There was a lot of times where the game would just chug along during an intense fight, or if the terrain just became like overwhelmed with enemies. Then the frames would drop to like 15 FPS for just a couple of seconds, but it was enough to get you killed, because all of a sudden the game's lagging and you can't dodge in time, so you get fucked up. That is the only complaint I have about the game, and it's being addressed from the From Software team, from what I read. So that's going to be fixed, and after that, I have no complaints. I think everything that they did with Elden Ring, they did masterfully. Just like everyone's saying, the game is the culmination of everything From Software learned over the last decade or so of making the Souls series, plus Bloodborne and Sekiro, all rolled into the perfect package. Just this amazing entree, this beautiful dish that's so tasty even Gordon Ramsay would shit himself and come at the same time. It is
unbelievable what they've been able to do here. Going into this knowing it was going to be open world, I expected it to just be kind of open world, like a pseudo open world. Not really fully realized, pretty primitive because it's their first foray into that kind of ballpark. And I thought they were just going to dip their toes in it. They didn't. They dipped their entire fucking sack in here. They cannonballed into this pool. The world is massive. Absolutely massive. And it doesn't feel tedious to traverse, and it also doesn't feel dead. Because there's a lot of enemies, and there's a lot of just like open world mini bosses scattered throughout, dragons that you can kill, and just exploring you'll find caves, you'll find unique items, you'll find unique NPCs that'll end up going back to one of the hub worlds, and you can talk to them, learn more about them, complete quest lines from them. It is so good. It really blew me away with just how big the world was. The scope of this game is unlike anything I was expecting going into it. And there's so many layers to it. There's not just one surface level area to explore. It also goes deep underground. For example, there was this elevator in the middle of the forest that I found where you pay a couple keys, you get to unlock it, you go down, and it's unironically like a 6-minute uninterrupted elevator ride straight to hell. And by the time you get to the bottom, you get to this beautiful riverbank, and it is a massive area. There's like 4 different Lost Graces, which is your bonfires basically. And it's so huge. I think there's 3 bosses there. The main one is this deer spirit that you can revive and fight. And the deer spirit has a great soundtrack that backs it. The entire thing is just so cool, and it's just from exploring and finding this elevator. It's amazing just how much there is here. There's so many zones, and all of them are huge and so full of life. In that riverbank zone that I'm talking about right now, there's these like ghost archers that are aimbotting. So every time you try and go by them, they just fucking blast you, and it makes you really mad. But you can't help but be like, they're kind of cute though. Like they're kind of beautiful looking. So you're like dodging these. Well, you can't really dodge them. You're trying to like not get blasted by these archers as you're trying to light pillars to fight the deer spirit. There's just so much to do. The scale of this game is amazing, and there's so many bosses. I think the final tally is there's 83 unique bosses in the game, or no, there's 83 bosses and 77 of them are entirely unique. So it's crazy. Like there's so much to do. I absolutely love everything about it, and I'm not an open world guy. But exploring this game just felt alive, and it felt like I was constantly able to find things to do and just find interesting shit. Whether it's going through dungeons, finding caves, and going through whatever boss was in the cave, there's just so much. There's so much. Even the quests are fun. Like, for example, I met Kenneth. Kenneth is a guy who likens himself to the ruler of Limgrave, or the heir to it at least. And his fort was taken over by this knight. I end up going to kill the knight, go back to Kenneth. Kenneth goes to the fort, and he's all depressed and shit. And it was just a cool little cute storyline, and Kenneth was an interesting character. But it's something that I haven't really done in Dark Souls, which is pay attention to the story. Dark Souls has always had huge lore, like a really deep lore, but it doesn't spoon feed it to you. In Elden Ring, I felt a lot more ingrained in the narrative. I felt like I was getting a lot more out of the story, more so than any of the other Souls titles. I don't know if that's because George R.R. Martin was loosely attached to this. I don't really know what role he had in here. Full disclosure, I don't know what the fuck George did, whether he just blasted a fart near the game and they just put his name on it. I couldn't tell you. But regardless, the story here is a lot more digestible, and there is a lot more to actually get from the game itself, as opposed to having to go out and like look up lore videos on YouTube or deeply explore the terrain to find like some kind of obscure writing on a wall or an obscure weapon that has a little lore to it. It actually does feed you a lot of information about characters through the quest lines and the side quests, as well as just the actual general narrative of the story and what's pushing you forward, which I appreciated because I think it's interesting. I think the entire universe here is interesting. Now, I will come out and say I haven't beaten the game yet. I'm 30 hours into the game roughly, and I just have fallen in love with it, which I expected to like it because Souls-like games are my favorite games. It's my favorite genre. And this is one of the very few moist meters I'm making before completing the product, but I'm just so enthusiastic about it, and I'm certain that it's not going to all of a sudden just fucking drop off at the end. It's only going to continue to get better. I think it'll probably be another 10, 15 hours before I actually just complete the main line and go back and even do more extra bosses, explore deeper, come up with more builds. There's so much to do in the game. So I really just wanted to give all of my thoughts on it right now. So gameplay, it's what you're used to from Souls-like genre. If you haven't played a Souls game before, get ready to get your asshole spread wide open. This game is brutal. I will say this was one of the harder Souls games, and maybe it's because I was doing everything at a pretty low level because I like the challenge, but it is very difficult. Most players immediately hit a wall on the very first major enemy encounter, the first boss being the Tree Sentinel, which is the horseback golden halberd boss. A lot of people take 50, 60 deaths in order to beat them because they don't realize you can run by him, which I think the game tries to encourage you to do because most players aren't going to be able to beat him at level 1. I was able to because I'm a fucking turbo gamer. I'm an elite gamer barbarian. I beat him in 21 tries, but most people take more than that, or they just run by him and come back, which is, I think, the play you're supposed to make. But yeah, the game is hard. Expect that. I'm glad that they didn't tone it down and neuter it. I'm glad they didn't water it down or anything. I enjoy the challenge. However, I will say a lot of the challenge came from self-imposed rules upon myself. I didn't use any summons for any of the bosses or anything like that. And I do think if you do use summons, to explain further, it's a new mechanic in the game where you can get these spirits that you can summon to help you fight. Only in certain areas. You can't use them everywhere, but in a lot of boss fight situations and a lot of just general areas, you can summon like wolf spirits. You can even summon a giant knight to help you. You can summon a fucking jellyfish if you want to help you. You can even summon a senile old man who just walks around and gets killed, but he's kind of goofy. You can summon helpers to help you out, as opposed to just summoning a player or something to help you. You have a built-in mechanic to summon NPCs that will fight alongside you with some of the bosses, as well as just general helping. So I think the game can be super accessible for someone that's not familiar with the genre, and can be a pretty easy experience if you're able to leverage these summons well and use them as like a way of drawing aggro away from yourself during a boss fight, and then you can set some attacks up or spells. So I do think there is a way of playing this in an easier way. I chose not to use the summons because I just prefer it that way. I think it's more fun for me personally, but I have nothing against people who do use summons. And the game isn't like shy about letting you use it. It's part of the mechanics. And even before a lot of bosses, you can summon a helper outside of your spirit summons. So for example, one of the first major bosses past the Tree Sentinel, like the actual first story major boss, is Margit. And right before going to Margit, you can summon a guy named Roger, who's just an NPC that you can touch the summon sign for. Roger comes in, and he'll just like goofily cast some weak spells. But he helps draw aggro, he can help take the heat off you. So there is absolutely ways of playing this in an easier way, and I think that's great to give those players a way of handling some tough encounters, and just more mechanics is always a good thing. So I like having the summons, especially for just clearing out trash mobs in an area. Another brand new feature in Elden Ring is of course one of the major ones, which is horseback riding. You get a mount where you can actually fight things while mounted, and it's great. I will say the mounted combat isn't super deep or anything like that, though I don't think they were going for it. It's mainly a way of quickly traversing the landscape, as well as just giving you options in an open world fight. So if you're fighting a dragon, in order to close the distance faster, you hop on horseback, then you hop off to attack the dragon, or you can just stay on the horse and just get some slaps in on the dragon before it flies away again, because it's a fucking pussy. So I do like the horseback riding mechanic. I do like the fighting on it, though I don't think it's like as crazily deep as some people were making it out to be. It is still very fun, very effective, and the horse can double jump, which is pretty badass. Another thing I was really surprised about is just how many new things they added to the game. I was expecting this to be kind of just more Souls without a whole ton added, but no, they really went all in. They, like, aside from just the summoning mechanics, aside from the open world, aside from the horse, they just added so many other features into this game that I didn't expect at all. So you have a lot of different options now. Not just new weapons, not just like new build possibilities, new spells, all that, but just in general, you have a lot of other options. So you can change your weapon arts on the fly by just using different ashes. You have the ability to block an attack and immediately counterattack, a guard counter. So if you just successfully block an attack, you don't have to parry it. If you block it and immediately follow it up with a strong, you can do a lot of poise damage to whatever enemy attacked you, and you can just kind of fuck them right in the butt pretty hard because you take almost no damage from a successful block, and you can immediately counterattack. So think of it this way. If someone's blasting a whole combo at you, maybe you dodge the first two, and then block the last one, and then you can get that strong counter for big damage to maybe stagger them for a visceral. There's just a lot of options, and there's now a dedicated jump button. I didn't realize just how fucking cool a dedicated jump button would be in Souls. I've always liked the idea of it as like a wet dream, but actually having it here is such a nice treat, and it gives you more options in a fight again. So you can do like a jumping strong attack, which does a lot of damage, as well as a lot of poise break. So again, you can stagger an enemy and get a visceral off of it. So there's just a lot of new things here, all of which are welcomed additions to the formula. I absolutely love everything about Elden Ring. I think it is tied with Bloodborne for the most beautiful of the Souls series, and my god, I just can't get enough of it. Again, I don't usually like open world games, but I can't help but just explore every nook and cranny of the Elden Ring terrain. There's just so much life to the game, and I fucking love it. Plugging Elden Ring into the moist meter, I'm giving it a 95%. It would have been a 98 because I really do think this is as close to perfect as you can get with like an open world action game, but the performance problems are really widespread, so while I myself didn't have too bad of a time with the FPS dropping or crashing or any problems with the PC, I know a lot of other players did, and it is a pretty widespread issue that will hopefully be addressed very soon, but as of right now, that is the only major problem with the game. But once they iron that out, I actually just cannot think of a single thing that this game doesn't do well. Yeah, there's a couple of bugs and glitches, but it's a massive open world game. Of course, there's going to be a couple moments where you clip into a rock in the middle of nowhere. None of them are game breaking. There is, however, a little bugginess to the horse that does kind of fuck you sometimes, where if you try and get on the horse too quickly, you might just freeze yourself. But that the open world game horse always going to be buggy, and it's so infrequent that it never becomes a huge glaring issue. I really can't imagine a better Souls game or a better open world action game in general. It's so well done, and only a couple of super minor hiccups, like a couple of blemishes. Like, it's nothing major. It is so incredibly polished and so well done. Elden Ring is nothing shy of a landmark achievement for From Software. The game is absolutely amazing. That's about it. So yeah.
I haven't showered yet, I'm sure you can tell. I gotta keep that Fazbear grease on me. So, I saw Five Nights at Freddy's the second that it released in theaters. I wanted to make sure I was planted, swamp ass in seat, ready to be blown away. I'll be fully transparent here. I went into this film without the highest of expectations. I expected perhaps a fun, bad movie. Not necessarily because I think the property's weak or anything. It's just video game adaptations don't normally land. They're usually pretty stinky. But I was hoping, maybe I'd be pleasantly surprised. And to a certain extent, I was. This is going to be an extremely hard moist meter to do without spoilers, because a lot of what I want to talk about is very spoiler heavy. So I'll go ahead and get this out of the way as well. I'm not the biggest Five Nights at Freddy's fan. I've played a handful of the games. Mainly, I speedrun Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. That's like my big venture into the franchise. I know enough about the lore to understand what was going to be going on here, as well as like the references and the characters and everything. And when I saw the film as flopping with critics, I kind of understood why, because it is a pretty deep, rich lore that I feel one movie isn't going to be able to do justice to get people brought into it. And so I kind of went in here expecting that this will be a movie Five Nights at Freddy's fans are going to love, and anyone who's not already a fan of the property is going to hate. And now that I've seen it, I think that's probably pretty accurate. So let's go ahead and dive into the old Fazbear pizza here. So, what I really liked about the film is the main character. I actually think Josh Hutcherson is the best part of this film. He also happens to be a fellow Hunger Games co-star of mine. Josh and I go way back on the set of the Hunger Games Mockingjay Part 1. Some might say I taught him everything he knows about acting, but I'm not here to toot my own horn. Point is, he is the best part of this movie. He plays a troubled man who watched his brother get kidnapped in front of him while he was a young boy, and he is still haunted by that memory to this day, all these years later. Every single night, he goes to bed to go to that point in time in his mind. He dreams that moment every single night because he believes somewhere deep in his psyche, he saw the person that kidnapped his brother and he wants to catch him. So he goes there, tries to get more clues to try and catch the person responsible for kidnapping his brother so many years ago. It's a really interesting concept, and it plays into the overarching plot pretty well. I would have liked it to have more of a role in how things pan out towards the end, but I'm still very satisfied with what they did with that. I think it's a really cool concept. Aside from that, everything plays out exactly how you expect it to if you're familiar with the games. Mike, the main character, gets a job as a security guard at Freddy Fazbear's place. It's actually kind of goofy how he gets there. He was a security guard at a mall beforehand, and then he saw someone that he believed was kidnapping a child, and he just beats the fucking daylights out of him in a fountain. Like, he tackles him into, like, a fountain and just gives him knuckle sandwiches out the ass. He was feeding him more knuckle sandwich than Freddy Fazbear fed kids pizza. Like, this guy was going crazy on him, so Mike brutalizes the guy, which is never really touched on again, even though I feel like he would have been locked behind bars after that incident. It was a big misunderstanding. He wasn't actually kidnapping the kid, it was his dad. And then after that, he gets the job as the security guard. Now, the movie is absolutely at its best when it's at least trying to be a horror film. This is by far my biggest critique of it. There's only a handful of scenes that even attempt to do anything unnerving or tense or scary. Now, it's important to mention that if you're familiar with their games, then you know the backbone of the scares of Five Nights at Freddy's is jump scares. Would you believe me if I told you that there's almost no jump scares in this movie? I think there's only 2. I think there's 2 jump scares in the entire runtime of this film, which blew me away because I thought this would be like a completely unapologetic jump scare, like bonanza. But it wasn't. And for the first time in history, I swear on a stack of Bibles, it actually was a detriment to not rely on jump scares because that's what built the franchise in the first place. So I really think this is like one of the few movies that really could have benefited from having more of them. Now, ordinarily, I think that's extremely cheap for your scares, because usually I'd prefer if you'd try and actually build tension, be unnerving, and all of that. And since they weren't using jump scares, they did try that, but it doesn't really work super well most of the time. So let me give you an example. A scene where a character's hiding in a closet and a light's flickering behind them. You can see an animatronic fucking rabbit giving it like some psychopath eyes, giving it the stink eye. And it becomes less tense and more silly. Because at its core, looking at animatronic animals being evil is a silly, wacky concept. So the tension building doesn't really work in the film. So I think this really would have benefited from just, playing it safe with jump scares. I think that would have been a little more effective. But even if it's not the best when it comes to frightening the audience, I still think it's at its best when it's at least trying to. And when it's doing that, it's very fun to watch. Like, the animatronics look amazing in this movie. The animatronics look spectacular. Like, I think they did a great job with Freddy and the gang. I really do. And there's a scene in particular where some rapscallions, some less than savory individuals break into the establishment to try and destroy it, just ruin it, even though it's already fucking disgusting. But they go in there to cause a ruckus. And the animatronics fight back. And it actually gets kind of gruesome at one point. Like, I was actually surprised. It's a PG-13 movie, but there's actually a couple scenes of gore, which I think is good. Like, I think it added to it. This movie was never going to be R in any universe. That would be extremely stupid. Five Nights at Freddy's is a property that's enjoyed primarily by the younger demographic, and you can't have an R-rated movie that kids can go to. So it was always going to be PG-13, but I am shocked at some of the stuff they put in here during some of these kills. I'm happy about it. But when they're not doing that, they're basically treating this movie like it's Five Nights at Freddy's fanfic that they found on Tumblr, complete with some cameos that drop their famous lines here and there, as well as like an entire sequence dedicated to Freddy and the squad building forts with Mike and his sister Abby and a cop named Vanessa. It becomes like a summer camp thing for a little bit. Like, they treat half of this movie like it's a fucking episode of the Rugrats sometimes. Like, it just feels like it clashes with the tone of the horror of Five Nights at Freddy's. Perhaps it's because I haven't played every Five Nights at Freddy's game, and I'm not super deep in the lore. Like, I'm not like a lore historian on it. But for the film, I feel like it would have done better if they leaned more in on the unnerving aspects of it, as opposed to kind of making it a 50-50 thing where 50% of it is kind of bubbly and sweet, and the other half is the more horror stuff. But again, maybe that's just not me maybe that's me not being knowledgeable enough on how the property plays out in the lore. But those were my least favorite parts. And especially because I think a lot of times the writing gets very, very silly. So in that scene I mentioned about the fort building, the cop, Vanessa, is like, best day ever! Like, she's having so much fun. She loves being at Fazbear's place. She's loving that Mike and his sister Abby are getting along really well with Freddy and Bonnie and Foxy. Like, they're having so much fun, and she couldn't be more happy. But then Mike and Vanessa go to a broom closet, and Abby plays the guitar and kind of like shocks herself, which of course, it's scary, and Mike freaks out and Vanessa freaks out, and then she immediately flips this switch where she's like, don't you ever come back here again, Mike. If I ever see Abby in this facility one more time, I'm going to shoot you.
Like, she just directly threatens him, even though the cop, Vanessa, has been actively encouraging Mike and Abby to play with Freddy and the friends and like be part of the crew here and have fun. Then all of a sudden she's like, I'm gonna fucking shoot you if I catch you here again. Like, it just feels like there's scenes missing where it builds up to her like disdain for them being here, because like actually 30 seconds ago she had the biggest smile on her face, grinning ear to ear. So it just feels like maybe they knew where they needed to go but didn't know how to get there in a smooth manner. So sometimes it just fucking flips. And I think it's actually exclusive to the cop Vanessa, because her whole role in this film is kind of just to be the Five Nights at Freddy's wiki. She is basically just an exposition robot. She's not really so much a character in the film. She's more like a YouTuber who swoops in and wiggles their finger. Well, actually, Mike, did you know? And then goes into like this whole exposition, dump on what's going on. So, like, it's no problem with the actress or anything. I actually think she did a fantastic job on screen. It's just she was written to kind of only be here to be a savior out of nowhere to keep people alive if things get a little too hairy, or inform the audience of the overarching lore that's taking place or what's actually happening here. So it just feels odd. Like, I wish they had done more with her as opposed to just making her the Wikipedia page for Five Nights at Freddy's. She's not the only character that I feel is written kind of poorly. There's actually a couple that seem like they're only here to remind the audience that these animatronics can kill. So they're kind of there just to die and nothing else. But aside from that, I think what it focused on with Josh, I don't know, I'm calling him Josh. We may be Hunger Games, veterans, but we're not on a first name basis. Mike, the main character, and his sister Abby are really the focus of it, and everything that happens around them outside of what happens inside Freddy's place is kind of just very odd. Like, it starts to fall apart. I really want to talk more about this movie, but it is all spoilers. This is going to be a minor spoiler, but I just have to mention this because it is such a head scratcher of a plot idea. So, minor spoiler, just fair warning here. A big thing that drives Mike to take the job as a security guard at Freddy's place is he may lose custody of his sister because his evil aunt is trying to get the girl so that she can make money from the government off having that kid. Even though she seems to already be really financially well off, and it's not like the government's going to be paying her fucking millions of dollars for this, but regardless, I think that's already a bit of an interesting idea. The way she goes about it is she wants Mike to die. Like, she even contemplates having him killed. All so that way she can take custody of the daughter to make, like, a monthly paycheck off having the kid or something like that. It's a really weird motivation, and it's not even really important to the plot. It's really just there because it gave Mike a reason to grab that job as a security officer. But aside from that, it's just kind of dumb and gets sidelined pretty quickly. She herself is also not really a character in this film. She's just here to be like a cartoonishly evil presence that kind of, haunts the place, basically, where she's there and she's on screen to be hated, and that's it. I'll stop going into spoilers. There's a couple more things that I'd like to say, but that would be way too much in the spoiler territory. There are things I liked. There are things I didn't like. Overall, this is a film that I am confident most Five Nights at Freddy's fans are going to enjoy, and I'm also confident if you don't like Five Nights at Freddy's, this doesn't really have a whole lot for you to get you invested and make you a fan. Although I do think the concept with Mike and like going into the dream state to try and solve a kidnapping case is interesting enough that I think it might push people to at least check out Five Nights at Freddy's lore to some extent. And Five Nights at Freddy's lore is actually pretty fucking good. Like, it is pretty interesting. So maybe that will be what happens. I also mention this because a lot of you saw the video. There was also a fight that broke out at the premiere of Five Nights at Freddy's. This is the last movie I would expect people to be throwing hands at, but I wanted to mention that. They're calling it the Fight of 87, which is a reference to Five Nights at Freddy's with the Bite of 87, where for some reason a bunch of people just started brawling in the theater on opening day for this movie. So just wanted to toss that out there. I did see the video. Very, very wild. Anyway, plugging Five Nights at Freddy's movie into the moist meter, I'm going to give it a 45%. I think it is not a bad film per se. I think there are bad moments, and I think there are things that weren't executed as well as they could have, but I do find it to be enjoyable enough that it was worth watching. When I initially left the theater, I was a lot less enthusiastic about it than I am now, mainly because there is just like a period of it where it just kind of becomes a slog to get through, and it clashes with what I think the tone probably wanted to go for. But looking back on it, I really did enjoy it with my friends. Like, we were talking to each other a little bit back and forth, whispering, of course, because we're not trying to disrupt the theater, about like how it ties into Five Nights at Freddy's lore. And then also, like, there were a couple scenes where like all fucking five of us all at once, when it happened on screen, went like this and then like that, because it was so nonsensically dumb what just unfolded. So it was a fun experience that I did enjoy, even though overall I don't think it's an amazing adaptation for the property. I think it's good enough that fans are going to be satisfied, but I don't think it's strong enough to stand on its own 2 feet where people that aren't already invested are going to get invested. I think they're going to maybe leave a bit disappointed. But anyway, that's really about it. See ya.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Invincible. I knew nothing about this show or the comics that it was based on. I initially thought this was a superhero cartoon for kids because it reminded me of something you'd see on Nickelodeon back in the day on Saturday mornings or some shit like that. I thought it was just a simple show to capitalize off superhero hysteria, just a little Weenie Hut Jr. show for your children to enjoy. But I couldn't have been more wrong. This show absolutely slaps, and it is far cry from for kids. This is a very dark show, and they say fuck, and it's extremely gory, like to a degree that I haven't seen that often in cartoons. And I don't like to make this comparison, but just to kind of give you a general gist of it, it is a little similar to The Boys in its brutality of showing how some of these superpowers would actually work on a real body. So you'll see people fucking blowing up. Their head will get slammed in the ground, like brain matter will splatter all over the place. They'll shit their pants, and like fucking shit particles will blast against their trousers, and it's pretty graphic, which is surprising because, like I said, I watched episode 1 fully under the impression that this was a kids cartoon. I didn't know shit about Invincible. And really, for like the first 25-30 minutes, I was still like, yeah, this is kind of fun. It's definitely for a younger audience, but there's nothing wrong with that. It's just this kid, he's in high school, he's going through puberty, he's learning how his penis works and why it gets hard, he's got these hormones going on, and maybe he'll get superpowers. Nothing too over the top and never seen before. Kind of reminded me of like some early Teen Titans shit a little bit. And then it gets to the end of episode 1, like the last 15 minutes, and you're like, holy shit, what the fuck was that? After episode 1's conclusion, I was hooked. And I was so surprised by what I watched there. And I just really fell in love with the show. I think Omni-Man is an incredibly interesting character. I'm not going to spoil anything, of course. But Omni-Man has a lot of depth to his character. The show tackles some dark shit, and it's not afraid to show you some brutal violence. It doesn't pull any punches there. There's a scene pretty early on, the world's being invaded, we need the superheroes to save us, and Invincible's just learning how to use his powers a little bit, and there's an old lady in trouble. Standard superhero shit. So Invincible going to save the day and be the hero he's born to be. He picks up the old lady, but since he doesn't have his powers totally under control, he just completely fucking folds her like a piece of paper, breaks every bone in her body, fucking blasting blood out of her pores. It's like a frat douchebag that took a beer can and busted it on his forehead, but with a full human being. And then he's like, oh my god, what have I done? And he takes her to the hospital trying to save this mangled corpse of a person that he inflicted, caused. It's wild. Like, it's actually wild. The writing in the show is so good. None of the characters are flat. I find all of the characters to be pretty well-rounded and interesting. I just think Omni-Man really shines in that department. I really enjoy the entire Invincible universe. It's able to keep you hooked, and it's able to be more than just what you see on Earth. There's constant hints of bigger things in the universe out there, and I can't wait to see where they go with that. It's a show that it seems to me like it has so many things it wants to show you, and it's only giving you the smallest side boob preview. You're only seeing like a little bit of the areola and not even getting the full package with the first season here. It's just setting these huge things up. But even doing that with just an appetizer, it was so good. Easily the most impressive thing about Invincible, besides its writing and its narrative, is its animation. Its animation is absolutely incredible.
There is obvious CGI at points, and sometimes it is a bit janky a little towards the end, but that's only for like some background stuff. That's not a big deal. But when it comes to a fight, it's beautiful. It is so fluid. In anime, and I don't mean to be blasphemous and call out anime here, but in anime, if you watch a fight scene in some of the big ones, the fight scene will consist of like maybe 2 attacks. Like, I'm using this spell. Yeah! Oh, I got hit by this spell. And now we'll talk for a couple minutes before the next attack is thrown. And like an entire anime fight scene can be broken down into like maybe 4 attacks being thrown in total across the entire fight. In Invincible, you get like fucking 5 minutes of straight fighting where it doesn't stop. Omni-Man's fighting something and he's fighting that shit for minutes constantly, and it's so fluid. It's not just like a still image that they shake, or it's not just him throwing a punch, it freezes and then you see the thing react where it doesn't really connect. It zooms it out and you get to see every single punch being thrown, all of the action where it's not close up and disorienting. You get to see the impact, and they do a great job of selling how strong the characters are. Like a punch, you can like feel the fucking impact in the show. Like Omni-Man will deliver like a One Punch Man serious blow, and then whoever he threw it at will fly through a building, fly through buses and cars, and then like blow up half the city. Like, it is huge. And like in most shows when that happens, you're like, wow, people definitely died during that, but they clearly don't show it because it's a superhero show, so they might as well just not exist. Like the citizens of the city might as well just be empty. In Invincible, you fucking see people dying during that. So like when this person is flying through the air and they crash through a building or like a train or something, you'll see like bodies just fucking burst into blood clouds and mist, be split in half with guts and tits flying all over the place, bowels hanging off of things. It's like you see the devastation and what can happen with this kind of fight in a populated area. You see all kinds of people getting crushed by falling debris. If a car gets, hit, you'll see the driver blast through the window and die, get cut up by the glass. Like, it's actually extremely intense. The action is on a whole different level. Probably not what you're used to seeing, because it never stops to like just break down a narrative. They're not like fighting and he'll like throw a punch, the guy reacts to the punch, he's like, oh, I can't believe you've done this, well, I had to do this because of this. He'll throw the punch and then immediately follow it up. Omni-Man will hit someone against the ground, they'll bounce off the ground, and while they're flying up in the air off the momentum from hitting the ground, he'll grab their leg, fucking slam them on the ground again, then he'll fly up even higher, and then he'll chase him up. Like, the fights don't stop. The fights never stop. When there's an action scene, you can expect it to just be full throttle fighting without just stopping to explain something, and there's never any cheating in its action where they just shaky cam a still image. It is fluid as fuck. The action is really, really cool in Invincible. I have nothing negative to say about the show. I think Invincible is one of those must-watch cartoons. It is hard to watch Invincible and not compare someone like Omni-Man to someone like From the Boys without getting into any spoilers. So I just highly recommend the show. I went in there with no expectations, and in fact under the false pretense that it was a kid's show, and was blown away. I think the show is something very special, especially when superhero shit is so boring and done to death. I think Invincible does something very unique. I give Invincible extremely high marks. I give it a 95%. I feel bad because I've been rating things so high recently, but like, shit's been good. Like, a lot of the shit that's been coming out has been extremely good. I don't know what's been going on. Like, we had years of just straight stinkers constantly, and now all of a sudden we're getting some extremely high quality productions like Invincible. I highly recommend it. I think it's great. That's it. See ya.
Morbius is absolutely miserable. I can completely confirm that everything you've heard about it is absolutely true, and it's even worse than you're probably thinking it is. It's not so bad that it's entertaining like I expected it to be. It is mind-numbingly boring. It was agonizing. I was in a constant struggle to stay awake for the movie. I cannot believe that they even bothered to release this. They should have just scrapped it and said it got stolen in a burglary or something. It should not have gone to theaters. When watching Morbius, I felt like I time traveled back to 2004 when almost every superhero movie was trash, like Elektra and all that. That's what this movie felt like. I feel like at some point along the way there was an idea for Morbius, and then they overdosed on Xanax and then produced this. It is, in all aspects, lackluster. Top to bottom. There is almost nothing redeeming about this movie. But Jared Leto made history. Not with like a great performance here or anything, but he now has one of the worst DC movies ever made with Suicide Squad 2016, and now one of the worst Marvel-based movies ever made with Morbius. This is crazy how hard this one missed the mark. So let's just go ahead and get started talking about the movie. Let's get after it. Let's get a little stinky in the cesspool. The story, it's trash. It's the most predictable superhero plot I think I've heard since the creation of the MCU. There is no attempt here to make a compelling narrative whatsoever. Everything you think is going to happen in this movie happens. If you watch the trailer to this movie, you probably already know everything that's going to happen in this movie with the characters. It's just a complete throwaway. There was no effort there whatsoever. It's like they had an AI write this plot after the AI sat down to watch 3 superhero films from the late 90s. It didn't try, didn't bother. So, not a whole lot to say there, just wasteful. I will say, though, that this movie feels like it was supposed to be completely different than what we got. It feels like all of the editing really betrayed it. Not that I think there's some Snyder cut version out there that's going to somehow save this absolute abominable septic tank explosion, but it definitely feels like it was changed drastically from the editing with a lot of shit removed, because it moves so quickly all the time when it comes to exposition. It gives you so much info in the fastest time possible with this absolutely ballistic speed run of vomit of information, and then things will just happen for no reason. Like, things will just happen with nothing that really got you there or made you care about it. There's not a single character in this movie that you will give a fuck about. The characters don't seem to give a shit about themselves either. Like, one of the main detectives, every time he's on screen, he's like, oh my god, more dead bodies. Oh my god, dead cops in my city? Not now. Why would he do that? And then at the very end of the movie, I'm gonna try and avoid spoilers, but this movie fucking sucks. I'll give you a spoiler warning if I get into it. This might be a minor spoiler. In the movie, there's a bunch of bats that fly out of the ground, and the cops are looking down, and they're like, oh, bats. Except for one of the cops, like the main one. The bats are going up, and he just looks at him angry. He's like, He just stares him down. He's like, And that's it. Like, none of the characters have any variety of emotions to them. They're all just like fucking robots. Except for Jared Leto, admittedly, he kind of tries as Morbius. There's times where he, like, gives an attempt at acting. Like, he wasn't horrible in the role. It's just everything about it was bad in general, but it's not because his acting was super turbo shitty or anything. It's just they didn't try anywhere in this film. So yeah, again, I think a lot of what's going to be really confusing to people is because of the editing, where things are happening for no reason, or things are happening like off screen, it feels like, that you just have to accept. It's just bad. Everything about the story, as well as the way that it's edited, is terrible. Absolutely terrible. And let's get to the most offensive part about this movie, is the fighting. The fighting is so disorienting. Anytime there's a fight, it's obviously all CGI, but they do it in a way that obstructs your view entirely. So when Morbius is fighting someone, it's just like a bunch of like smoke and tendrils and like shit flying off of him, a bunch of like really dark particles that obstruct your view. So half the time you don't even know what he did. And when he's fighting the villain, who is horrible, the villain is absolutely nonsensically trash. When those two collide, it's like action figures being blasted together in pure pitch black. Like, you can hear things happening, but you can't see it, because both of them have just a bunch of like dark debris flying off of them, so you can't tell what is actually going on screen in a fight. It is disorienting and just genuinely confusing in all aspects. So you're praying that you don't have to see a fight because it just hurts your eyes. It's just bad. Like, it's bad CGI. It's bad everything. Literally everything is not good. I don't know why they even bothered to release the film. They should have just got rid of it. Like, just have some shame. Be like, you know what? This is a net loss, but at least we can save our reputations going further. It just wasn't worth it. I do think this movie was supposed to be R-rated, because in some of the scenes, like when Morbius slashes someone, or what I assume is a slash, because what he does is he like cranks his hand for a slap, and then fucking 1,000 pieces of debris and pixels fly off of him, and you're supposed to, connect the dots that he just slapped or slashed the guy. And then you'll hear a bunch of blood sound effects, like as if their throat just got slashed, but none of it's on screen. There's no like blood on screen or anything, so you're never really sure, but I'm assuming there was supposed to be blood and gore. And there are times where there is like some blood here and there, so you get like the general idea. But I have the feeling, based on the sound effects and the way that it's presented, it was supposed to be a lot more violent and show a lot more blood. But in an effort to keep it PG-13, they decided against it last minute, but they didn't change anything about the scenes, so it's all just a mess. Morbius is horrible. The movie's really, really bad. If I had to fish for one compliment, I would say at least it's not long. Like, at the very least, the movie's short, and the theater is probably empty. My showing had like 8 people in there, and I didn't even see them when I walked in, so they might have just decided not to go last minute, which is probably the right call to make. That's really like the only 2 things I can find to even say almost nice things about. And then there is one cop, like the cop's partner, who has a lot of speaking roles, and I didn't mind him. It looks like he put a lot of effort into his acting. I'm not sure what the actor's name is, or even what the character's name was in the movie. But there was a scene where he like brought holy water to the investigation, and he was charismatic. I liked him. But yeah, that's about it. Plugging Morbius into the moist meter, I'm giving it a 15%. Even that feels a little high, because it's not entertainingly bad, it's really boring bad. Now I feel like I have to justify why I gave it a 15% and not lower, and I think it's because I like some of the ideas. I think Morbius could have been a cool movie conceptually, but this one was just executed so poorly. There's a couple of things in the film, and again, I'm not trying to get too deep into spoilers, that I think could have worked really well if it wasn't this movie that tried them. So I do like a couple of things that it wanted to do, it just didn't do them well. But anyway, that's about it. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're looking at a real grizzled elite gamer status hardcore game, Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice. From Software's newest game. Let me go ahead and say Souls-like games are my favorite games out there. It's among my favorite genres. I've played literally every big budget Souls-like game, including Lords of the Fallen and The Surge, which a lot of you fake pussy-ass gamers seem to have skipped over. I was out there putting nuts to butts on those games, and I still enjoyed those. I fucking love the genre, and I'm happy to say Sekiro: Shadows Die Twice is a beautiful entry into it, gave me some fat boners, and now it's time to share that hard penis with you and what my thoughts on the game were. Now, I think most people were expecting Sekiro to be Dark Souls clone, Dark Souls in a different coat of paint, a Trojan horse for Dark Souls just in a different time period, and it's not. This is a very mechanically different game from the Souls series, and that's a good thing. They explored different ways of combat, and I think for the most part it flows and works really well, and I don't think anyone's surprised to learn that Sekiro is a good game. From Software really fucking kills it in this genre, and they really did try and innovate in this one, and I think for the most part they did something very unique. It's not an overly different game from the Souls games. If you've played the series, you're going to feel right at home in here. It's immediately recognizable as a Souls-like game, but it plays very different. For instance, in Souls-like games, typically you rely on dodging as your primary method of avoiding damage. Sometimes you'll block, sometimes you'll parry, but primarily you're going to be dodging. In this game, dodging isn't that useful. Primarily, you're going to be focusing on deflecting and breaking your enemy's posture. That's a new thing they added, is the posture system. The more you attack, the more they block, the more you block, the more you deflect, the more damage you're doing to their posture and the more damage you're taking to your posture. If you break their posture, even if you haven't taken down all their health, you get to use a finisher on them. And it's fucking satisfying, and it makes it very strategic. Each fight seems like a really impressive showdown between two highly skilled swordsmen. And trust me, as an avid Reddit user neckbeard, I understand the ways of the blade, and it really feels like a real sword fight. They fucking nailed it here. Especially when it comes to one-on-one with like a mini-boss, a strong enemy, or a boss. One-on-one in this game just feels so fucking great. Now, the difficulty is what a lot of people are debating on. Is Sekiro easier than Dark Souls? And my answer is, I'm not sure. I really can't tell. The game is certainly more forgiving. Sekiro has idols, basically this game's bonfires, all over the place. You can't walk 10 fucking feet without running into an idol. You could stop, take a piss at one of the idols, then walk downstairs and find another idol. A great example of this is in Ashina Castle. At the top level, after you defeat a boss, you unlock an idol. You go downstairs and you immediately get another idol. So you have an idol on one floor and on the floor below it, literally about 10 feet apart. They give you so many idols. Also, death isn't as punishing as it is in Dark Souls. You lose some of your sin, which is your currency, and then half of your XP as well. But really, neither one were that big of a deal in my playthrough. Losing the sin didn't exactly feel as devastating as getting like rejected to prom or anything. Neither did losing the XP.
because you can get it back pretty easily. Plus, when it comes to losing XP, you never drop a level. So let's say you start at 2, level 2 in your skill points, and you die 50 fucking times, you just get ass blasted 50 times, you never go back to level 1, you still stay at that benchmark right there. So death, I think, is a little more forgiving in this than the Soul series, where you lose all your souls and you get kind of fucked hard sometimes. This one, you never really feel like you're getting face fucked by death. You can kind of just keep charging at it. If you, let's say you spend all your sin, you can kind of just keep charging at a hard enemy or a hard horde and just fucking meatballing your way through. Just fucking keep dying, just keep wet noodling it and never have to worry about it because it's not that big of an issue. The only thing is, if you do die, you have an option of resurrecting, and the resurrection causes dragon rot, which will lower your unseen aid, which is another mechanic in the game, and also inflict your NPCs with what's called dragon rot, which makes some quest lines inaccessible. So that can definitely be a hindrance, but you can get rid of dragon rot, and you can choose when you get rid of dragon rot based on when you use the item to get rid of it. I think all of these mechanics work really well, but overall make it a more forgiving Souls-like game. For some people that's a positive, for others it's a negative. For me, I was neutral on it because it's still just a fun fucking game. Now, one thing I really have to critique on the game is the camera. The camera betrayed me more times than I can fucking count, especially indoors. Indoors in an enclosed space, sometimes it'll just take the lock off of the enemy and it'll throw itself into like a goddamn toilet somewhere, just get lost in the shitter. You can't see anything and you just get absolutely clobbered, and by no fault of your own, just some spotty camera shit. And I also don't really like Sekiro's approach to difficulty in some circumstances. In some boss encounters and mini-boss encounters, the way they make it hard sometimes isn't because it's a hard enemy, it's they'll throw multiple enemies in addition to that enemy at you, so they'll just try and overwhelm you with numbers, and then it becomes a huge challenge. I think that's a really lazy way of making a boss or mini-boss challenging. I prefer if his combo strings or moves were just better designed and to make it a more mechanically challenging boss instead of, holy shit, I'm just getting hazed in the football team's locker room here by all of these enemies. I just don't like that approach all that much. Also, in the game, you get a robo-arm, a prosthetic arm, which comes with a lot of different attachments, like a fucking flamethrower, things like that. I think all of the prosthetics were very, very situational, to the point where you'd almost never use them and you'd always just forget that you even had them. I don't think the prosthetics ever really had a strong purpose, at least in my initial playthrough. New Game Plus, I find myself using it a bit more. That's another thing, New Game Plus is extremely easy. I expected it to be harder, not a complaint, just saying. But the prosthetics never really solidify themselves as a valid thing to use against any enemies of any kind. Sometimes, like with the finger whistle prosthetic, you can plan out a strategic attack, and I could see the use in that. But in terms of combat, I don't think you will ever use a prosthetic for more than like breaking a shield or something with the axe, or just very briefly stunning the boss with the firecracker so you can get one cheap shot in on him or break up his combo. Also, in addition to that, there's a couple skill trees that are totally fucking worthless as well. The martial arts tree serves genuinely no purpose at all. It doesn't really increase the duration of your consumables by much, maybe like 2 or 3 seconds from what I've seen. And also, it doesn't increase your sin gain by that much. And all of the offensive moves in the martial arts tree, you should never ever get. It's a huge waste of your skill points. I have seen no reason to ever use anything from the martial arts tree. And the last complaint I have about the game is the hook shot. I don't exactly know how else to explain it. The thing that you latch onto roofs and you swing towards them, to put it for all of you non-Sekiro veterans out there. That lock-on is very all over the place and inconsistent. Sometimes you're like right underneath the thing that you want to grapple onto, and it will not pick it up. It seems like it works when it wants to work, and sometimes it just fucking falls asleep and won't work at all. I swear that shit just made me so soft sometimes. But anyway, let me plug this shit into the moist meter. I'm giving Sekiro Shadows Die Twice an 85%. I think the game is spectacular. I fucking loved it start to finish. Also, the final boss, I think, is a huge, huge piece of shit. The final boss is the hardest boss in any Souls-like game I have ever played. And I beat the shit out of every Souls-like game, and I never struggled as much as I did on the final boss. You have to fucking fight 4 different phases with full health bars, and the third phase and fourth phase of the final boss, I think, are just genuinely unfair to a certain degree. I had to cheese it to beat him, and I'm embarrassed to say that because I've never had to resort to using any type of cheese on any boss in any of the Souls-like games, But in this one, I unfortunately did. I haven't gotten back to him in New Game Plus yet. I'm taking my time and exploring again. And this time, I feel like I can probably get him, but still, that boss is fucking brutal. Now, I'm always asked to tier list put the Souls-like series in order from best to worst. So I'll give you my tier list for the Souls-like games. Number 1, Neo. Neo's my favorite Souls-like. Second place, Dark Souls 1. Third place, Bloodborne. Fourth place, Sekiro. And then fifth place, Dark Souls 3. Sixth place, The Surge. Seventh place, Dark Souls 2. Eighth place, Demon Souls. And then ninth place, Lords of the Fallen. That is my Souls-like tier list, and that's about it. So yeah.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Squid Game. I know I'm very tardy to the party here, but I just finished it at my own pace, and god damn it, I liked it a lot. I really enjoyed it. Conceptually, I think it's fucking fantastic. I understand a lot of people compare it to things like Alice in Borderland and a couple of like manga, but I'm unfamiliar with those properties, so to me, this was fresh. This was brand spanking new here, and I really enjoyed it. So let's really get in there. I love the concept of this show. I think it's fantastic. For those that don't know, it's about a bunch of people that are competing for money, and the games that they play are children's games, but it's life or death. Think Sword Art Online, but less nerdy and no video games. In fact, it's nothing like Sword Art Online. The only thing similar is that people die in it. And the concept just never gets old. I was constantly wanting to see more games that they compete in. You'd think after like the fourth game, you'd be like, okay, I get it. They're gonna play something we played as kids, they're gonna play fucking Foursquare or throw the sticky hand at the window and whoever loses dies. Okay, I get it. But you never get tired of seeing it because it's very, very well acted up to a certain point, which I'll get into. And you really see and get to know the characters, so you're rooting for them or rooting against them in the games. And it's really fucking cool. It's really, really good. I was so blown away by this. I would highly recommend watching it subbed. This is a Korean film. Watch it subbed. Do yourself a favor. The dub is extraordinarily goofy. I started watching the dub just because I thought it'd be like fun, but it truly wasn't fun. It was embarrassing. It's not a very well done dub. So I would say stick with the sub and really get the optimal viewing experience. I think Squid Game does an excellent job of fleshing out characters and really making you feel for them. There's no really good people that participate in the game. They're all people that do fucked up shit, have done fucked up shit. Now they're all here, and they're not really looking for redemption or anything. They're just here because they want some fucking money. So it's not really a movie that's trying to be profound, like, can even the biggest sinner be redeemed? It's just, hey, he's kind of fucked up, right? But will he win all this money? 45 billion won. And then even at a certain point, it becomes less about the money and just more about what will you do to survive. The money just becomes like a secondary thing that you just kind of forget about, like a fleeting wet fart. You just want to survive the games at that point. And it's really clever in the way... I'll save this. Actually, let's get into spoilers, because I don't think the movie's perfect. There's things I want to talk about, but I can't talk about them without getting into spoilers. So, spoiler warning now. The show does have a big drop-off. I know you've probably heard that from a lot of people who have finished it. The show starts fucking nuts to butts, incredible, really great stuff. Very, very little complaints from me there. But as it continues, when it gets to like the last 3, maybe even 4 episodes, it changes. Its tone, what it does and what it aims to do, it's all completely different. It goes from this mysterious thing like, who are these puppet masters pulling the strings and why are they doing this? What's it all about? Instead of like challenging you to come up with your own theories and your own imagination, it just starts spoon-feeding you exactly what's going on, and it gets really goofy. They bring in some VIPs, and they are American actors, most of them, and they suck. Like, they're fucking trash. The acting all the way up until that point was incredible. And they're background characters, but they do play a big role narratively, and they're trash. Like, they're really fucking bad. The best part about it is one of them shows us his ass cheeks, and his ass cheeks are really silly looking. That's like the best thing I could say about the VIPs. Other than that, they're just bad, and they serve no purpose except for bringing down the quality of the show. So that's a big complaint. I don't like that they start giving you all of the answers. I think shows like this are at their best when you don't know things. Think The Cube, Why are these things happening? And you have to challenge yourself to come up with what does it all mean? Where is it all really trying to go? And who's behind it all? It's better
when it's not just beaten into you. And this is a show that I believe is going to go more seasons. It would have been better to save those answers for a later season and have season 1 keep being like a mysterious, terrifying, horrifying, gut-wrenching experience, instead of just changing it halfway through. Well, it was past the halfway point. It's, like I said, it's like 3 or 4 episodes, and it does take a dive, but it's not as bad as people say, because it still has everything that made the first half great, but it's also bogged down by some questionable decisions and questionable things going on. I don't want to get too deep into spoilers because I still encourage everyone to at least check it out, and that's the end of spoilers. So now you can click back in, spoilers are gone. Now I'm just going to plug Squid Game into the moist meter now. Like I said, I don't want to get too deep into spoiling anything for the show. Even though it's been out for a while, you've probably heard about the huge hype around it. I still encourage you to watch this show, and I don't want to give too much away about everything that goes on in it. So plugging Squid Game into the moist meter, I'm giving it an 80%. I just think everything it tries to do, it does well. It unfortunately does lose its footing, like I mentioned in the spoiler section. And that's really where all my complaints are. I really don't have like anything bad to say about this show up until it starts to get noticeably different and a bit weaker. But I still overall really enjoyed it. So yeah, that's about it. See ya. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at Suicide Squad Killed the Justice League. I'll go ahead and admit up front and honest here, I had no expectations of this game whatsoever. I thought it was going to be pretty bad. I'm a huge fan of Rocksteady, and I thought this was going to be their first blemish, their first real miss. I love the Arkhamverse. I even love Arkham Origins. Even though I think it's the weakest of the bunch, I still think it's a great game. But everything they showed from Suicide Squad, from its marketing material to it being a live service game, just didn't look appealing to me. But I'm always open-minded and willing to be proven wrong and pleasantly surprised. But unfortunately here, the only pleasant surprise I got is that the game is short, so you don't have to suffer through the tedious grind for that long. Now, I don't think the game is great by any means, but it's not nearly as bad as everyone's saying it is. I think it's better than the Marvel's Avengers game, which I thought was a fucking dumpster fire. I think it's better than Gotham Knights, which I thought was abominable. But by no means is it a great game. At best, it's mid. And it's extremely frustrating that this game is a live service game, by the way. I'm so tired of that shit. You can't play it offline. I think they're planning on introducing an offline mode, but right now you can't just play it without an internet connection. So when I started it up last night, it crashed twice because of the server. Even though I'm not playing with anybody, I couldn't just enjoy the game without having to be perpetually fucking connected to do so. It's just nonsensical. But anyway, let's go ahead and get into the real meat here. Narratively, I was actually pretty invested off rip. I think conceptually it's a really fun idea for the game, and the first half of the story I actually thought was pretty well done. The voice acting, I thought crushed it. The characters I thought were enjoyable and endearing, especially King Shark. He really felt like the main character of this game. He was the one that I played mostly, like I kind of mained Shark. You can switch around between any of the Suicide Squad members and play as them, but I really liked Shark the best out of the lineup, and in the story, he definitely shined brighter than anyone else in the crew. The writing's going to be really hit or miss depending on who you are and what really tickles you. For me, a lot of the jokes weren't landing, and that's probably because the characters just never shut the fuck up. It's just this perpetual cacophony of noise as characters scramble to shout a joke every time you move in the game. There isn't a single second that passes in Suicide Squad where someone's not trying to make a quip and be quirky. And that was just a little grating to me after like the second hour of it. But for a lot of other people, I'm sure some of the jokes will be landing more often. It's not like a huge complaint. I didn't hate the writing overall. It was just too much all the time. But like I said, narratively, I was invested in the beginning. Unfortunately, it falls off so hard in the second half. The second half just goes fucking hog wild into the stupidest ideas imaginable. I don't want to spoil anything, but the second half of this story, the tits just get blown wide open. It goes so cattywampus, I don't know what happened. It feels like there might have been some kind of internal panic, maybe like a crunch time, and they just felt they needed to wrap the game up as quickly and unsatisfactory as possible. Because they had set up something good. Like I said, I spent the first half enjoying the story, and the second half is a disaster, an absolute disaster. And it's made worse by the fact that this game has the most despicable boss battles I've played in a long time. The boss battles in this game are laughably pathetic. So when you're fighting the Justice League, that's not a spoiler, the name of the game is fucking Kill the Justice League, so obviously you're going to be fighting them. When you're fighting the Justice League, the boss battles are so
underwhelming. I would have rather you not fight them at all, and it just gives you quick time events as your fight with them. Or just give me like a fucking visual novel, a point and click, anything besides the boss battles in this game, because they are trash. So let me give you an example. This was in some of the gameplay footage, so it won't be a spoiler. When you're fighting the Flash, he does 2 moves. He has literally 2 moves that I can recall. I don't think he even has a third one. And all you do is you dodge his tornado, and then you dodge his beam, and then you counter it. And when you counter it, then you can shoot him a little bit. And you do that for like 3 bars of health or whatever, and then that's the end. And it's just every single time you do one of these boss battles, there's no real reward. There's no payoff. There's nothing cinematic about it. They just kind of plop over and go, like they just plop over dead. Because you found their one weakness. Enough bullets. It's so bad. I don't know how the boss battles even exist in this state. Why no one stood up and said, listen guys, these suck. Why was there no hero at Rocksteady that said, guys, we gotta redo these boss battles because PU, it's stinky, and all of our quality assurance testers are bored out of their minds doing these fights. And I guess to give you a little minor spoiler, but just to really drive this point home, the final boss fight, the boss you've been striving to fight and defeat this entire fucking game, is literally just using the exact same moveset as your first boss fight. It's the Flash. He uses the Flash's 2 moves, and that's it. They couldn't even design a unique moveset for the final boss that you spend fucking 10 hours grinding to get to. It's just pathetic. The boss fights are truly horrendous. Like, the bosses just aren't fun to fight or anything at all. It's just a headache. Now, let's talk about the gameplay, though. So, the gameplay I actually enjoyed quite a bit in the beginning. It's flashy, it's fast, it's fun. The movement I enjoyed the entire time. I actually think the movement from all the characters is really fun, except Harley. I didn't really like Harley Quinn's movement all that much, but the rest have really fun ways of traversing the world. And the gameplay I did enjoy for a time, but it becomes so repetitive by like hour 4 that it becomes a chore to keep doing. Now, and I don't think it's even really the gameplay's fault. I think that's the fault of the lack of enemy variety. There's only 3 enemies in the game, I'm pretty sure. I think there's just 3. And the way you fight them doesn't change. You do the same thing for every single enemy. You don't have to fight them a special way or do anything different to beat them. You just keep pumping them full of lead, occasionally counter, and that's really it. You can melee too, but the melee is really bare bones here, unfortunately. It also doesn't help that it's the most boring enemies in gaming. It's just alien zombies that shoot. That's it. So while the gameplay was fun in the beginning, it got really tedious by towards the end. The combat is fast, it's flashy, and there is some fun variety to the builds that you can do because you find these different weapons that change things around, tweak things, give you modifiers, and you can do some pretty interesting stuff, but it just really loses its luster when there's nothing to really test it against because it's just the same enemies repeated over and over and over again, and you don't have to do anything really special to beat them, you just shoot them a lot and then occasionally counter when there's a blue indicator. Another thing that holds the gameplay back and makes the combat feel dull is the missions. The missions are tragic, absolutely insulting, because the missions are the same things over and over and over again. It's so repetitive. And God, please, heavens to Betsy, save yourself from this game if you hate escort missions, because there's so many. There's escort missions out the wazoo. I can't believe we're still getting escort missions in 2024, let alone this many. There were so many escort missions in this, I was nauseated. But even when you're not doing the boring escort missions, you're doing these fucking boring, like, tower blow-up missions, where all you do is you kill, like, a group of 4 enemies that zap in, they phase in. You kill those 4, which breaks a shield on the crystal that they're protecting, and then that crystal opens up the incubator, so then you go to the incubator and then just press square and it blows that up. Mission complete. And you'll do that like 5 or 6 times. And if it's not that mission, then it's the mission where you need to collect data. So you kill some enemies that spawn in, and you get little data cards, and you bring them back to your truck. And then you do that 8 times, and then 16 times. And those are like, that's the kind of missions that you get in this. And I really think it's because they needed to make that for it to work as a live service game. They needed these easy, simple, repeatable missions in order to make these daily challenges so we keep logging in for your dailies and whatever. And it sucks. The missions are so bad. They're so boring. And it's After the first hour of the game, you have experienced every mission the game has to offer throughout the entire 9 to 10 hours of the game. In fact, the final mission leading up to the final boss is just doing the previous 2 missions. It super sucks. You just blow up the incubators and then you go and gather data chips and bring them back to the Goober Mobile, and you rinse and repeat that process all the way up until you get to the final boss, which is just the copy and pasted Flash moveset. It is so lame and underwhelming. Like, the combat, like I said, was fun for a while, but there's just really no opportunity for it to shine when there's just nothing really new to do with it, because you're doing the same shit over and over and over and over again. It really is a shame, because I do think there was potential with the gameplay formula. I was skeptical going in that they'd make that work, but they did. Like, I actually think there was real potential with using these mechanics that they introduced for its combat, but it was surrounded by like the worst design choices and just nothing to do with it at all. It's such a shame. And I really think it's because of this live service thing that they were forced to fucking shoehorn into the project. Now, I'm sure the project was always envisioned as a live service game, but I know this wasn't their first choice. It's very well documented Rocksteady wanted to do other projects, but then ended up on this one, and then some of these, well, I think pretty much all of like the senior Rocksteady staff left. So it became not the project that they set out to make. And it really feels that way. So much in here feels like it was some kind of corporate decision to put it in, as opposed to like an actual, game developers like, this would be a good idea. It just feels like so much of this was here because it felt it needed to be for the live service model. It's just so sad. Rocksteady's games meant a lot to me, and to see them put this out just makes me upset. Because I know they can make great games. We've seen them make banger after banger. But this is a clunker. It's not as bad as everyone is saying it is. It's just inexcusably mid. Insultingly mid. And I really get the feeling that they knew that too. Which is why they didn't send out the review codes or anything prior to launch. It just feels like they didn't have that much faith in it. And it really feels like there's blatant padding in here. Like, I can't think of an explanation for why there's so many escort missions. Everybody, every developer, every player in the world knows that escort missions are flops. Nobody likes escort missions. And there are so many in here. What a fucking fumble. What an absolute fumble. There's just no reason for that to be here other than they felt forced to put in these like really generic, repeatable standard missions because it's fucking live service. It's not great. Anyway, plugging Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League into the moist meter, I'm going to have to be giving this a 45%. And I guess mid would be a 50% here, just perfectly average in the middle, but I'm giving it a little under that because the second half of the story is truly abhorrent. And the second half of the game is just spammed with the worst missions the game has to offer. So it gets very, very, very annoying towards the end of the game here. So it's just a shame. I also do predict that this game won't be around long. It's looking like they're trying to get like 12 seasons out of the game, 12 to 13 seasons out of the live service experience here. So even when you beat the game, it's not done. I think there is a non-zero chance this game doesn't make it to 12 seasons. I think they might pull the plug on it before then, thus it would never actually be completed. And if they don't introduce the offline mode in time, you'd never be able to play it again because you'd need the online, which they, I think, would probably take off if this game doesn't sell super well. So it's just really a game that's not worth the $70 price tag right now. It certainly wasn't worth the $100 I paid to play it early for the early access to it. But anyway, that's really about it. See ya. Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Batman movie. This is, of course, unrelated to the Nolan trilogy as well as the Affleck universe. This is a standalone dimension where Batman is just starting to get into the swing of things and figuring out what he needs to be for Gotham. I actually think Gotham is the best part of this movie, the city itself. It is hell on earth, and they don't shy away from showing you it. It is truly a shithole, a stinky, festering cesspool. And of course, throughout all of Batman media, everyone knew Gotham's got a lot of crime. It's not a good place to live. But this is the first Batman movie that really doesn't pull punches in showing you just how awful and miserable and hopeless that city is. To the point where even Batman questions if it will ever actually yield any results what he's doing, and it might just be a lost cause, fighting a losing battle. And you see that now. And I think that's a really interesting detail because the majority of this movie, and it's a long movie, it's almost 3 hours, the majority of it takes place at night. So for most of the time, Robert Pattinson is Batman. You don't really see a whole ton of Bruce Wayne. So you're getting to see him actively trying to make Gotham a better place and seeing him fail at every turn to have a positive effect. In fact, things are only getting worse with him being there, despite him having a very profound effect on criminals themselves. He's still new to being a vigilante, but in the short time he's been operating, he has become fear incarnate, and the movie does a great job of showing you how scary the Batman can be. A criminal just stole money from a cash register, and then down a dark alley he hears some weird noises. Some criminals were graffitiing a place and their spray can bottle fucking rolls into a dark hallway, and then they all look up and they see the bat signal like, fuck, Batman's probably over there like the boogeyman about to fuck me in my ass, and they all run away just out of fear. And then there's some common criminals that are about to beat up a man for no reason, just for the sake of a viral TikTok video, and hit like a Harlem Shake afterwards or something. But then they start hearing these thunderous fee-fi-fo-fum footsteps coming from the darkness, and Batman emerges, and everyone's getting their ass beaten. He's blasting everyone. The movie does a great job of showing you a scary, broody Batman, and it does a great job of that. But then here comes my first complaint. I think Batman is great, and I think Robert Pattinson does a great job as Batman, but there's no disconnect between Batman and Bruce Wayne. They're the same character in this movie. When he takes off the mask and is Bruce Wayne, he is still just as broody and emo as Batman. Whereas in all the other Batman iterations, Bruce Wayne puts on a facade. He's a playboy douchebag. He's completely different when he's out of uniform, when he's off the clock. But in this movie, Pattinson's still just fucking sad and depressing, even when he's not being Batman. So he's around Alfred and he's just like, Alfred, you're not my dad. Don't act like my fucking dad. Like, it honestly sounds like he's one Pierce the Veil song away from rage quitting MySpace. There's just no difference between Batman and Bruce Wayne. Even when Bruce Wayne was in the public eye, like paparazzi, people around him and everything, he was still head down, slouched, didn't say anything to anyone, just very broody again. Which is very weird to me because I'm used to the Bruce Wayne being like Chad Thundercock and Batman being the very serious, very broody, dark figure, not Bruce Wayne and Batman. So I don't think it's like the worst decision in the world because I think it can work, and he is still very new to this, so he's still figuring out exactly who he needs to be and all of that. But still, it was something I felt I should point out because it didn't work super well for me, at least not in this movie. I think him as Batman was fantastic, but him as Bruce Wayne, I just didn't really think hit as hard as it needed to. I thought every other character did a fantastic job. Alfred wasn't in the movie a ton, but when he was, I thought he did a great job of commanding the scenes. I really liked Alfred, as well as the other supporting characters. Selena Kyle, which is Zoe Kravitz, she did a great job as Catwoman. And just the entire cast, honestly. But the real standout to me was actually the Riddler. The Riddler's a character I've always found to be super goofy, not very intimidating, and more of just like a comic relief villain. Now, I'm no big comic book lore expert. I don't know if the Riddler's ever been super cool, but in everything I've ever seen him in, he hasn't exactly been like the most intimidating or scary villain in Gotham. But in this movie, he was like fucking Jigsaw. He was a criminal mastermind who set up all kinds of wildly elaborate puzzles as well as actual saw traps. I don't want to give any spoilers, really, but there is one time where he uses something I'm pretty sure I saw in Saw 4. Like, he has a contraption on someone that he wants to punish and get Batman's attention with, and it's pretty fucking intense. The movie, I'm shocked, is PG-13 because it feels like it wanted to be R. From the very first mystery that Batman has to solve, they seem to want to go hard. Dude's missing a thumb. He's been beat to death with a fucking hammer. It's intense. It really does feel like it tries to deliver an R-rated experience at the PG-13 price. Like, it doesn't. It feels like they may have just dialed it back in post in order to hit PG-13.
I obviously can't prove that, but it still works just as well. Just because it's not like over the top gory or showing everything that I feel it wanted to show, it doesn't take away from it. I think the movie is really smart. I think it does a great job of giving you a detective mystery as well as just some great actual superhero kind of shit. Batman is still every bit as cool in this movie as he always has been. I think Robert Pattinson does a great job when he's beating ass, when he's solving crimes. He's obviously very smart. There's never a scene in this movie where I feel like Batman is lame or anything. Same with the Riddler. And I really thought the Riddler would be just kind of a goofy pick for their main villain, but it's a great, great job. And there's so much to it. It's more than just the Riddler. There's a lot that goes on. There's a lot of moving parts. And this is going to bring me to my next complaint, and it's one that I can't touch on too hard because of spoilers, but when the Batman is solving some of these mysteries, he completely throws the value of human life out the window. And what I mean by this is there's a giant car chase, and the chase is fantastic. It is really well shot, and I love that they wanted to really stick with realism, so instead of having a giant tumbler, he has a fucking muscle car with a crazy jet turbine thing on it like you see in the trailers. Goes full-blown Dukes of Hazzard. But what happens in this chase scene is Batman is so fixated on catching the guy he's chasing, he completely disregards all of the lives around him that are lost. Because in this scene, there's tons of cars crashing into each other, and the people are actually dying because the cars explode. There's a scene where this is a minor spoiler, I suppose, so just fair warning. Okay, warning over. There's a scene where 2 trucks explode. Those people are absolutely dead, and as well as the cars around them. The 2 trucks explode, and he ramps off of the trucks with his vehicle as those trucks are exploding. So all of those people are dead, and it's entirely Batman's fault because he was chasing this guy for so long on such a busy interstate. Whereas he didn't really need to chase him. He had everything he needed to know about the guy, and in fact, when he caught him, just let him go, right? Like, he didn't need to chase him, so all of those lives didn't need to be lost in this pursuit. He could have just come back a different time. So when, of course, Batman inevitably gives the whole speech about why taking lives is wrong, it really loses a little bit of its impact because it's like, bro, you are directly responsible for at least like 100 people that died on that interstate because of your senseless chase through there. Like, you have no room to be saying things like that. So it's just something I wanted to point out, a little nitpick. And there's also another scene where he is like quite literally directly responsible for people around him getting hurt that aren't even involved. But the thing I'm saying is there are times where I was like, a little weird that Batman would be okay ramping off the fucking corpse of these people in this chase. So I just wanted to point that out. It's not like a major complaint. It's more of just something that kind of rubbed me the wrong way and felt a bit weird. Overall, though, I just really did like the movie. I thought 3 hours was going to be way too long, but it was a great runtime for everything that they captured here. It told a fantastic story and was a really good coming of age for Batman, honestly. You get to learn a lot about the character and see them, I wouldn't say grow, because by the end of the movie he's still just as broody, but he starts to realize more of what Gotham needs from him. And it was just a really good movie, and it was super well shot. There were so many incredible scenes in this movie, I couldn't even pick like what my favorite would be, because there were just so many amazing moments that I thought just fucking slapped. One other thing that I do want to point out that it's a bit of a complaint is there are times where relationships between characters just fucking go wacky, like Insano style, quickly. For example, I'm not, I've already gotten into minor spoilers, I won't do any more. But there's a relationship that blossoms out of nowhere. Batman only shares a couple scenes with this person, and then 15 minutes later, they're in love, it seems. Even though there was really nothing that built up to that. So things move quickly between characters and their relationships that I don't think they really earned. Like, it doesn't seem like there was a natural progression to get there. It just kind of, oh, okay, I guess we're in love now. And that happens again narratively where Batman learns something and it's a huge, huge revelation, and then in genuinely the next scene learns something that contradicts that and overwrites that. So it's like, oh, fuck, okay, actually, that was never real to begin with. Okay, it was a misunderstanding. It's like, maybe we should have let that plot point marinate a bit more before we immediately said that it's not true, because it would have been a lot more impactful, because it was a big moment, and then in the next scene, it gets shit on and told is wrong. So there's just some things where I felt like it went too fast with things and didn't let it develop naturally. But overall, I really thought the movie was great. Plugging the Batman into the moist meter, I'm giving it a clean 80%. There weren't really any major complaints I had about the movie. Honestly, I just enjoyed it top to bottom with a couple of minor complaints that I mentioned. And I'm very hopeful for like future Batman movies. I think Robert Pattinson is a good fit. I would like to see more come from Bruce Wayne as opposed to Batman. I'd like to see Bruce Wayne get the same kind of development that the Batman can get. But anyway, great movie. That's about it.